All right, still got that crash. That is 40 northbound right there at, 65 northbound right there at 40 on the South Loop. And just west of there, we've got a crash at Broadway going eastbound. So eastbound 40 is a mess right now, and it's causing problems elsewhere, especially if you're northbound 65 or eastbound 40 or 440. Right now, we've got 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike. Police working a crash there. Then look for westbound, that is, after Fessler's Lane. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, kids, here we are. Here we go. It's just after 3 o'clock, and a good afternoon to you and yours. Hope your day's going well so far. It's absolutely Chamber of Commerce weather outside. I mean, it's wintertime, and it's cold, about 42 or so degrees, but it is beautiful out of doors. Almost all the snow is gone now. Oh, it's in patches here, there. The snowmen are hanging in there as best they can, but otherwise, snow has melted away. And we are left with beautiful sunshine. And as I say, about 42 degrees. It's Wednesday, Jan 15, 2025. It is episode 729 of our visits together today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And it's also locked for Trump Day 319. You can find us on a variety of platforms, and I'll get into those momentarily. After I introduce you to the players of the show, the reason that you come to visit with us on a daily basis. People like Ken Weaver back in the newsroom, in the news closet B, I should say. There's also Chris Weber, who's fascinatingly making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as humanly possible, and that's yeoman's work when I'm behind the microphone. Hello!
Not that fascinating.
Everybody. What's going on?
Another beautiful day.
Just writing up news.
Hey, how about that news?
There's a lot of it today.
It's a crazy news day. I mean, everything's happening fast and furious. When I'm probably not going to get to the idea of Marco Rubio being the next Secretary of State, and I can go ahead and tell you I'm probably not going to get to that story, but but nobody was covering it. Marco Rubio is, you know why? Because when you're in the Senate, you're a part of the club, and they treat their club members differently, man. Yeah. Watch how they will go after, I'm talking Democrats, will go after some of the nominations, whether it's Pam Bondi or Pete Hegseth yesterday, and then watch how they treat Marco Rubio, which is, hey, Marco, hey, man, you doing okay? Yeah, you still know the secret handshake. But anyway, I won't get to that story, but there's lots going on, man. Just a flood of news and information happening back there in the newsroom. You keeping up, Ken?
I'm keeping up.
Yeah.
I find these FDA stories very interesting today. You know, they're finally going to ban an ingredient in the food and stuff we drink 35 years after they did it in makeup.
What? Wait, yeah. Is that red dye?
Red dye. Red number 3 dye.
I was listening to that news. I was listening to a previous newscast where you talked about that. And as I'm driving in, it occurred to me, why are we dyeing food? But just for presentation?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, if you're eating a cherry-flavored whatever, it needs to be red.
Right.
Okay. Well, why don't we just stop that?
That's what I'm saying.
Well, they're getting ready to, I guess, at least for this red dye number 3.
It was red dye number 5, I thought.
Now,
back in the day.
Previous one, yeah.
That was the previous red dye that caused the cancer in the rats and all of that?
So.
And now this is the new red dye that causes the cancer in all of the rats or whatever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Apparently under FDA policy, if any study shows there is a link to cancer in obviously a human or an animal of a certain level, then they've got to go ahead and not approve that anymore. So now food manufacturers have 2 years to get rid of that. And it's also apparently in some of the drugs we take. The drug makers have 3 years to get rid of it.
Well, if it's bad for us, let's just get rid of it.
We'll get there in the decade or so, you know. Give us a few more years.
You know, I mean, I don't know. Why? I mean, didn't they do this with? Remember, they did this with pistachios. I was a big pistachio fan back then.
Oh, that's right. They used to be pink.
They used to be, quote unquote, red.
Yeah.
And I think I remember this correctly. Y'all fact check me on the super text line if I'm wrong. But I think the justified reason was that the makers of pistachios felt like they would not be considered ripe if they were green. And they're naturally greenish tan in color. Yeah. And now that's all we know for pistachios.
And they're still delicious.
Oh, they are.
I love pistachios. We're all in on the pistachios as a collective?
Yep.
As a group? Oh, man, pistachio ice cream is my absolute.
Ooh, that's real good.
Oh, my goodness. Can we talk about food until Bill Lee gets here?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun. Speaking of Bill Lee getting here, Bill Lee will be getting here. So we were originally planning on having the governor on Monday, and now I think we can fully understand why he had to delay it, because I was telling the governor's folks who I was talking with, and they were in agreement. We both mutually agreed that I would prefer to have the governor on to speak with you. It's not about me, it's about you, right? So I would prefer to have the governor on to speak to you when he can fully talk about his reasoning behind calling a special session, which has now been announced, his reasoning why he included the issue of immigration in the special session, why he included the issue of additional funding for those suffering in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene in East Tennessee. And then, of course, the big lift would be the school voucher program known as the Freedom Scholarship Act, or the Freedom Act. And we'll talk with Bill Lee about that right around 4:30. He might be here a little bit earlier than that, but we're trying to clean out things to get maximum time with the governor as he stops by in studio. In the 5 o'clock hour, we welcome to the show, again, Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. I say this every time we have Freddie on. I think this is, I know, this is the first time that we've had him on since I was permanently moved into the afternoon time slot from 3 until 7. And for those who cannot listen earlier in the day when I was on from noon to 3, I'll just reiterate what I have said over the 3 years that I've been in Nashville. I will talk to anybody about any subject that is of interest to the people of the state of Tennessee. Anybody about any subject. I don't vet people based on their political affiliations. I don't vet people based on their political views. And I'm not afraid of having a respectful disagreement with folks. I think we're losing that art in modern society. And I say the liberals have lost it long ago. Liberals, they decided long ago that if they're going to disagree with you on something, they just call you a racist. And they decide that if you were just a little bit less racist or a little smarter, you would agree with them. They can't abide by a gentlemanly disagreement about the best path forward to accomplish any particular thing. Well, sadly, I've seen a lot of conservatives start doing this as well, where we can't just decide that we might have a different approach on it. I was talking to somebody the other day. No, it was this morning. And this person, she will go unnamed. But I don't know her that well, but I know her well enough. She knows my heart. She knows where I'm at. She knows I believe in liberty and freedom and small government, and government serves best that serves least, and all of these things. And we're having a conversation via text about the voucher program. And I was told, well, I understand that, you're easily misled. And I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? Easily misled. Can we not just agree that sometimes we might have a difference of approach or a difference of perspective on matters such as the Freedom Scholarship Act or whatever we're calling it? I can never remember, and I don't know. Well, I do know why, because they've called it like 14 different things. It is an art that we must reinstill in conversational politics, in my opinion. If we're planning on getting anywhere, don't cut people off and make them an enemy just because they might disagree with you on one thing. I used to call them purity conservatives. Now I call them purity keyboard warriors. These are folks that nothing is ever good enough. But my grandpa taught me a long time ago that half of something is better than all of nothing. If it's something you want. If you're aiming to get 100% of something, getting half of something is better than getting all of nothing, right? And I think we would do well to remind ourselves of that. So anyway, we will sit down with the governor and get his perspective on why we needed a special session. I'll run down some of the particulars before the governor's arrival. Once again, he's expected to be around 4:15 or so, but who knows? You on the phones before then, 615-737-9986. Always open on the phone lines. I love talking with you and hearing from you. 615-737-9986. I just keep those open constantly. I don't limit you to any length of time, and I don't limit you to any time during the show. You just call in whenever you'd like if it's a subject matter of your choosing. 4870, you're exactly right. I don't know if this is what you mean by this, but the term rhino has turned into a nothing phrase. And I will die on that hill. And it's because people decided that they could begin and end arguments. If I have a difference of opinion about how best to tackle illegal immigration, or we have a difference of opinion about how best to tackle, natural disasters happening out in California or over in East Tennessee, or whatever the subject might be, involvement in the conflict in the Middle East, whatever it might be. We have one disagreement. Oh, you're a rhino. You're just a rhino. Well, what the hell are you talking about? Show me the rules for being, by the way, I'm not even a Republican, and I've never claimed to be a Republican. Show me the rules, though, of what it means to be that. It has become, sadly, and I'm not here to lash you with a wet noodle. I know most of you are well aware of this, and I'm not here to preach to the choir either, but sadly, what that phrase has become, it is a conservative version of racist. Liberals, when they don't have an argument to make, when they don't want to engage on any intellectual level, they'll just point at people and call them racist. Well, you're just racist. As if that just ends the conversation. I don't have to talk to you anymore because you are racist, or you're stupid. You're either stupid or racist. I don't have to talk to you anymore, and if you were less stupid or less racist, you would agree with me. And people have done the same thing about, sadly, the term rhino, which was born out of a genuine feeling that establishment Republicans had lost their way in terms of their conservatism. And now it's just a bludgeon. People just use it as a pejorative. You're a rhino. As if that says everything. When it really, to me, says nothing. It goes nowhere to the point of, and oh, by the way, I don't know if anyone has noticed, and I can tell you this as an outsider on this front because I don't belong to any club that would have me as a member. I don't belong to Club Republican. I don't belong to Club Libertarian. I sure as hell don't belong to Club Socialist. I mean, pardon me, liberal. But these parameters are changing all the time. I have observed and have said it for years that today's Republicans are yesterday's Democrats. And today's Democrats are yesterday's socialists. And I don't see much conservatism running around anymore. Now, that's not casting aspersions. That's just offering observations. 3989 says, keep your wet noodle to yourself, Matt Murphy. I'll do my best. Jason writes in and says, I was watching a TikTok last night of John Rich, and all of a sudden I hear this loud bleep voice, and I've never seen this guy's face, but the voice was Matt Murphy. What? What are you talking about? Jason, let me in on that because I don't know. I'm on a TikTok with John Rich. I mean, I know John. I like John. I appreciate it. You better get those TikTok views in while you can because apparently TikTok is closing it down. When is that? I think this Sunday is my understanding. TikTok has decided to shut it down, although there was a rumor running around that they would be willing to, the company ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, well, it's really the Chinese government that owns TikTok, but whatever. The company that owns TikTok said that they would be willing to sell it to, wait for it now, Elon Musk. I'm going to pause here while the few liberals in the listening audience have their heads explode. That's right, Elon buying another social media platform. He's done well with the X machine, I'll tell you that. All right, the Israeli government and Hamas have agreed to a deal that will pause fighting in Gaza and lead to a phased release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners, according to multiple reports, multiple sources. The president came out earlier today and made this announcement. I would like to say formally, first and foremost, thank you to Donald Trump. Thank you. How many ways can Joe Biden be exactly like Jimmy Carter? I mean, I don't know that I can count them all. High rates of inflation, insistence that government is the solution to said problems, not the causal factor of many of those problems, energy crises around the globe, conflict in the Middle East, and on and on and on it goes. And an individual at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue that does not seem to have the ability to handle all of these things, or just abjectly doesn't have the ability to handle all of these things. And then we have a hostage crisis that is coming to an end, fingers crossed, hopefully due to the peace through strength foreign policy initiatives of the incoming president of the United States of America. And don't for a minute, you know how I know that this was largely Donald Trump's doing? Because if you go on networks, I do it so you don't have to, like CNN, hashtag never CNN network, that network, garbage people, garbage network, spewing garbage. I'll watch so you don't have to. Even this network is going, well, it was a joint effort between the incoming Trump administration and the outgoing Biden administration. If they tell you it was a joint effort, I think you know who was largely responsible for it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we'll get into that, the particulars, the details, and exactly how long this is going to take. 21 after the hour, just getting underway. I hope your Wednesday's going well. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, I will admit to you that the word stink has a ring to it. For me, I mean, stink, I like the word stink. It's fun to say. It's like a party in my mouth and everyone's invited. But you know what I don't like? I don't like smelling it. And if you go to some of these other auto repair shops, sadly, it's all stinky, 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 smelly, greasy old rags lying around, a countertop that you don't want to touch, seats that you don't want to sit on. Another thing that stinks, also sadly, the repair shop that keeps your car forever. They're not honest with you. They don't call you back when they say they're going to call you back. And, you know, just what was your last experience with a vehicle repair shop? Was it like this? Well, I don't think you've been to Eurofix. You know, I'm here to tell you, Eurofix does it differently. Eurofix takes the stink out of European auto repair. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with every visit. And they'll give you an estimate at the end of that inspection. It's not a high-pressure deal. It's just they're telling you what's wrong with your car. And at Eurofix, you also get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. You never pay dealer prices at Eurofix either. Eurofix is in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now the brand-new shop in Mount Juliet. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844 Eurofix, or go online to myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com, and tell Aaron and the crew that Matt Murphy sent you.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
It doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
Gaza ceasefire, Tennessee special legislative session, firefighters raking to try to find human remains in Los Angeles. We'll tell you about that at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's bad out there. We'll give you an update on that as well as we move through the news items of the day. A very, very busy News Wednesday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've already upset people. I'm going to try to calm down. I mean, did I do this? Y'all listen better than I do to me. I don't. Did I call Governor Bill Lee Billy at some point?
No.
Billy?
I didn't think I did.
Billy Lee?
I did. I don't
recall that.
I don't recall that either.
You may have just said Bill Lee.
Yeah, you said Bill Lee.
I might have said Bill Lee.
Billy.
Yes, sir.
And maybe it sounded like Billy. Well, 6090's upset at me. 6090 will not hear this because of what I'm about to read to you. Because 6090 says, Matt Murphy, you just talked about being more respectful when we talk. Then how about calling him Governor Lee instead of Billy? Good grief. I'm turning you off.
I love it, Ellen. They say they're not going to listen anymore.
That's the one? I mean,
That was the straw that broke the camel's
That
back.
was it.
I would think.
That was it, Brother Murphy.
Is it? I mean, I say this with all due respect, 6090. Are you new here? Is this your first day? Because I would think I would have already done something that would have offended your delicate sensibilities. I apologize. I sincerely apologize if I have upset or offended thee. By the way, you can't offend me. I do not give other people the ability to create offense in my body. That is something that you do for yourself, right? Why would I give others the power to offend me? And I don't understand why people say that. You've offended me. What do you mean I've offended? I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to associate with people that you disagree with. You can walk away. It's a free country, but I don't understand all of that. But if I have offended thee, I sincerely and humbly apologize to 6090, who is not hearing any of this because they've already turned me off.
Yeah, they quit listening.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that you call him Billy when the governor gets here now, just to see what happens.
You want to throw out a Billy?
Yeah. Say, Billy, tell me about
Maybe
such and such.
Billy Boy.
Oh, that would really fire him
Billy
up.
Boy, Billy. No, I would not do that. I have no interest in calling him Billy Boy or Billy. Really, I
He
think
look like a Billy.
No,
He's a Bill.
He looks
he's
like
a
a Bill.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a William either. To me,
Ooh, that's a good point. I could see William.
I can say William before Billy.
Yeah, certainly.
Sure.
When I
sure.
see House Majority Leader William Lamberth, he looks like a William.
Now, he looks like a Willie.
A Willie?
Willie or a Billy. That. Have you seen that hair? Yeah. And I love William
He's
Lambert.
got the flow.
He's got, and then he throws that spike up
Yep.
there. He gets that product in there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's, I mean, he's battling Democrats down there on the floor of the House. And if necessary, he'll lead with the head.
Lean in. Yeah.
I think Bill is, I mean, he could never have been a Billy because then he would have been Billy Lee.
I went
Lee.
to school with a kid named Billy Lee.
What?
Yeah, Billy
Like
Lee.
Lee was the middle name?
No, that was his last name. Billy Lee.
Well, I'll be.
Yeah.
You know what? I always longed for having the two names when I was a kid. I thought the people with the two names were
like
pretty good.
the two first names.
Oh
type
yeah,
thing?
like there was one kid that I've talked about Coach Wiley before. Oh, Coach Wiley, who we had health and PE with Coach Wiley.
Yeah.
And if it was raining at all, or if it had been raining and it was muddy, he would make you sing songs in order to go outside and not do health. Anyway, Coach Wiley would he loved good football sounding names, and we had a kid in the class named Bobby Joe Whitman. He goes, "You gonna be a linebacker one day, Bobby Joe?"
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Bobby
good one.
Joe Whitman.
I had a friend by the name of John Ben.
Oh, John Ben's good.
John Ben Blackburn. Everybody called him John Ben.
John Ben?
Yep.
John Ben, get in here.
I don't think I think he went on to be a mayor or something somewhere.
Well, that's a good mayor name.
Mayor John Ben Blackburn.
Sounds like a tongue twister.
You just call him Mayor John Ben. Hey, these potholes are getting crazy. Call Mayor John Ben. Speaking of potholes, they're doing pothole repair on the loop, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Goodness.
That's always fun. For those, and I'm relatively new, but just a hot tip for those of you brand new to Nashville, Tennessee. We live in a state and in a climate that creates potholes annually.
Does it ever?
I mean, it just does.
And this is just the temporary fixes here.
Oh, yeah.
It's too cold for the real deal.
And we are constantly repaving our roads.
Yep.
Because of the potholes. Yeah, you can't put the asphalt down during the winter.
Nope.
And so they just patch it for the wintertime. And I've hit a couple of additional holes on my way in. And it's sad but true. Do you kind of mentally identify them?
Yes. Yes,
Ken,
I
do you
do.
do that?
Oh, I do indeed.
Got to stay to the left here. Got to stay to the right.
Watch that pothole.
Yes, sir.
And it's kind of and then it's a happy day when you drive. Oh, look, they filled it.
Yeah.
How about that?
Too late now because I still dodge it anyway.
Gary, I'll get you out of Franklin, and I apologize to those of you who just fell off. I'm sorry. We were having a little fun there. We're going to have some fun with the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Be back right after this.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and messy traffic coming up in 5 minutes. A preliminary deal has been reached by Hamas and Israel starting Sunday to pause the fighting in Gaza, release some hostages, and to pave the way for additional negotiations that would permanently end the fighting there. This is Joe Biden, president.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal.
Biden says his team has been coordinating closely with President-elect Trump's incoming team all along the way. Here in Tennessee, House Majority Leader William Lamberth responding to Democratic claims that the special legislative session the governor called will be used to strong-arm reluctant Republican lawmakers into voting for the Freedom of Education Act school voucher bill.
In any way, form, or fashion, these are three separate issues that we will be handling within a special session at the same time, but none of these three issues are linked to the other. Hurricane relief and disaster recovery is extremely important to Tennesseans, and it will not be linked to either the education issues that come through or immigration.
Special session kicks off in 12 days. Firefighters on the wildfires in Los Angeles County hoping to get a break with calmer winds in the coming days. Alex Stone in the fire zone in Malibu.
Using rakes and other tools, urban search and rescue team members move from burned-out house to burned-out house along the iconic Pacific Coast Highway, along beachfront homes with the glistening Pacific Ocean behind them. Once the image of entering Malibu, these beachfront homes are gone. Now searchers looking for human remains.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. In the Gulch, 40 eastbound after Broadway, police on the scene of a crash. Then 40 westbound right after Fessler's Lane. We've got 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike. And then on the South Loop, still got that crash 65 northbound right there at I-40. In Rutherford County, we've got a stalled vehicle on the left shoulder, 24 westbound near I-840. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Where does it hurt? If you are at a certain age, it's going to hurt somewhere. And wherever it hurts, the Dr. Gill Center has a team assembled in Franklin, Tennessee to assist that pain. Dr. Gill started the clinic well over 30 years ago, and he brought modern and new technologies to Middle Tennessee. Like spinal decompression, was the first in the market to bring spinal decompression to the citizens of this state, and so much relief has followed. Do you hurt in your back, your neck, your knees, your hip, your joints? Well, they've got Class 5 laser systems. They've got red light therapy, e-stim, and much, much more available for you at the Dr. Gill Center. I invite you to reach out online at callmepainfree.com. That's callmepainfree.com to find out how the Dr. Gill Center can assist you. He also has a telephone number available for you to call with an appointment, and I encourage you to do this soon. 615-882-4838. 615-882-4838. 38. Let's make 2025 the year that we get pain-free without having to pop pills, without having to shoot up with needles, and without having to consider surgery. With the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spice and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
As listener 1498 has indicated, the snowflakes are out today for some reason. I mean, I thought the snow was going away, but we got snowflakes out. Such as, I mean, and look, I'm not casting aspersions. I love every single one of you. I love every single one of you. I don't want some of the listeners. I want all of the listeners from 3 until 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and I love you. Pause for effect. However, 8896 does not love me very much right now, because 8896 writes in and says the RNC, Republican National Committee, has a doctrine. A rhino is a Republican that has a position outside of the party's stated platform. You, as an unaffiliated voter, should not tell me what my party's platform is and is not. I'm not telling you what your party's platform is. I mean, but me as an American and a thinker, I mean, I can disagree. He writes in and says, I respect your independence. If there's a written mission statement on the RNC and DNC, there is a written mission statement on the RNC and DNC websites. Well, it's not my club. I don't tell people who gets membership and who does not get membership. I just, I get called a rhino all the time. That's all I'm saying, and I've never claimed to be a Republican and never been a part of the Republican Party. That's all I would say. Gary is next up in Franklin. Was I able to do that? Hey, Gary, how are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm good. How are you?
What's going on, man?
Well, I'm a little bit on the fence about the school choice bill, and I apologize if you've already covered this and I didn't hear it, but one thing that was always attractive to me about school choice is it's sort of like capitalism. If you take the children out and you take the money with them, then that school is forced to improve and to get better, or they're going to lose their funding. They'll go out of business, so to speak. And if I've been told right, this bill does not pull any money away from the public school system, and therefore it doesn't seem there would be much incentive for them to improve for the vast majority of children that will still be left in the public school system.
I have.
Am I correct on that?
It is one of my. Once we get past the special session, in terms of talking about why he decided to call a special session, kind of the nuts and bolts of that. One of my first questions that I'm going to ask Governor Bill Lee when he steps into our studio is, how does the money work? I had it written down because I've had conflicting reports. I just need some clarity on it, because it's my understanding that the money within individual districts, it is based on student population. Well, if money is based on student population, and if X school loses, whatever it is, let's say 100 students, then it's my understanding the following school year, if you base that on the amount of population that you ended the school year with, if those 100 students are gone, then they're going to naturally lose some money. But then to sell the bill, what we're being told is, oh, no, this isn't taking any money out of education, out of public education. Well, that might be true. If that's the case, then where does the money that the individual districts lose based on a lack of population, where does that money go, is what I want to know.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it, Gary, because I agree with you. We should not, if I'm funding you based on the number of, based on the number of employees that you have. You own a business, and I'm giving you a grant based on employee base. If you cut 10% of your employees, why would I continue to give you 100% of the money?
Right. Yeah, that was my question. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask it, Gary. Keep listening. Right. I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. 615-737-9986 if you'd like to get involved in the show. Any of your questions that you want to have the governor answer. We are limited. I mean, obviously, we're time limited to a certain degree, but if you have questions, I'll try to get answers for you. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. 5210 says there's a bad wreck and Ken, you might be talking about this already. I don't know. I haven't heard.
Let's hear it.
A bad wreck at Spence Lane and Lebanon Pike.
Have not heard that one yet.
Now, this one says Spencer Lane. I'm not familiar with Spencer Lane, so I assume that was a spell check deal. I'm familiar with Spence Lane.
Yeah, he probably means Spence Lane.
Yeah, Spence Lane and Lebanon Pike there. Not to be confused with Lebanon Pike.
Injury crash, Lebanon Pike at Spence Lane. Police reporting this one. It is a mess in traffic today,
What the heck's
folks.
going on with traffic?
Everybody's back to work. Everybody's off vacation.
Oh, no.
Everybody's back.
I suppose. So the loop, we had a wreck at 40 and 65, right?
Yeah, 65 northbound at 40 on the South Loop. Then we had one just west of there at Broadway. And I'm telling you, the South Loop is, they have intensity. TDOT uses in, color coding to tell you the intensity of the backups. I mean, a lot of the South Loop is indicating bumper to bumper parking lot because it's just jet black.
Yeah. Well, that's bad news.
A lot of red out there.
And
a whole bunch of red.
We haven't even gotten to real drive time conditions.
No, sir.
How's 24 doing, Ken?
24 is about typical. It is bright red, angry red, and yellow all the way down to Laverne.
Well, that's just a normal day. I mean, let me know when we get to the purple. If we get to purple, then we got a problem.
Well, that'll happen whenever I go home.
Well,
it always waits until then.
I don't know. Was it worse? I've been meaning to ask you this question anyway.
Okay.
Was it worse going home at what 11:30-ish?
11:45.
11:45 when you were on in the mornings. Is it worse 11:45 in the morning or 6:45 at night?
6:45 at night.
Is it really?
11:45. It was busy, but you're going 70 to 80 miles an hour, and the only thing that would stop you is if somebody crashed.
Sure.
Whereas you've got the volume to deal with at 6:30. Wow. I mean, a lot of apparently there's like two waves. I see it get really heavy right around 5 o'clock. Then it'll kind of thin out around 5:45. It'll turn back to kind of just yellow and green.
You get excited.
Then 6 o'clock. boom, here comes the angry red.
Just for you, Ken.
Just for me.
Just a little special delivery, little package.
And then another thing I've noticed is on nights that the Preds are at Bridgestone, northbound 65 is a parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose everybody's trying to get to the game.
The drop.
Everybody in Franklin trying to get to the game, whatever. We'll keep you apprised of all of the traffic nonsense that's going on a little bit early today before we really crank up the afternoon drive time. Let's talk with Rick in Springfield. Rick, thanks for calling. How are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing all right. Outside of my wife, you and Chris Hand be two people I think be like beating a dead horse to try to argue with, and that's a compliment. But on the school thing, back when they started out the Hope Scholarship thing, my daughter got that, and it wasn't 1 year after that come out that the colleges upped their tuition the exact amount of the Hope Scholarship. So when you do this money for these schools, these private schools, what's going to keep them from just upping their scholarship money to get that extra money, and what's in place there to help protect that?
Well, I will ask the question. I don't know that there are a lot of, let's noodle this out together. So if you've got a lot of different private schools that don't have to take the scholarship at all, right?
Okay.
And they currently have, let's say, a private school in, let's say, a swanky one in Brentwood, charging you whatever, $20,000 a year. I don't know what they cost. That swanky school in Brentwood, based on the possibility of getting 2 or 3 or 4 scholarships, or maybe 10 or maybe 20. There's only 20,000 of them, right? So they're going to raise tuition rates on everybody in the school. The people that are already there paying, they have to raise rates consistently, right? They can't just raise the rates on the scholarship payers. You would have an uprising within those private school institutions. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense. It's a lot more. The Hope was just $2,000 a semester, but it made a big difference, when you just didn't get it. So I understand some of them won't raise it, but what I hear coming is, we got this great big influx of students coming in. We've got to raise we got to have more money to be able to acquire those kids and that kind of stuff. So I just wondered if it had been talked about, if everybody's on the same page with, hey, we're not looking at just trying to spread more money into the private school. We're trying to get the kids educated.
What I would recommend to you is that and thank you, Rick, for the call, the free market would dictate a lot of that. So if you have a very swanky private school that is full and everybody wants to get into it, those schools are probably less likely to accept the scholarship at all. Nothing prevents them from declining the opportunity to take kids via the scholarship program. Secondarily, if you have schools that are accepting of these scholarship programs because they have empty slots and they're welcoming, that's just like tuition money to the schools. So if I've got 1,000 students and I'm bringing in 5 students or 10 students from the scholarship program, I'm going to raise my tuition rates by $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on everybody just so I can score more money from the people that weren't able to afford to get to the school prior to the scholarship happening? I don't think that's going to happen. Secondarily, if it does, I would expect that they would see an outflow of students, an outflow of parents going to a different private educational opportunity based on the rates that the school, the free market eventually takes over because the private institutional systems in this state actually compete against one another, unlike public education, which is quote unquote free, which it's not really free. Luke is next in Shelbyville with a thought on illegal aliens in our school systems. Hello, Luke.
Hey, Matt. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Just my question. So many undocumented children out here in the school systems. How does that deflect everything, all the numbers? So that's just my question.
Wait, say it again.
So with all the undocumented people we have here, parents, and then we have students and their kids, and they're in their school systems. So I just was wondering, what number is that? Hang on one second. I'm picking up my niece.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll call you back, Matt.
Oh yeah, call
I'll
us.
let you later.
Call us again. We would have held, and we got all the time in the world. We don't mind. Play a little. Dun, dun, dun,
Well, he's probably not in a hurry either. We've given traffic.
He had to pick up his kids. So the nature of your question is about illegal aliens in our school system. If illegal aliens come across the southern border, illegally obviously, and they take up residence in the state of Tennessee, under federal law, states are required, and I forget the name of the court case. I can look it up. There was a court case that I believe should be looked at again. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not stating my support of the way that this was decided. I'm suggesting that it has been decided by the Supreme Court in the early 1980s. And if somebody remembers the case, let me know. But the Supreme Court of the United States of America determined that based on the constitutional provisions and based on that states cannot deny students educational opportunities based on the legal status of them or the legal status of their parents in public education. Regardless of immigration status, that federal law requires that states and local educational agencies provide all children with equal access to public education at the elementary and secondary level. It includes children such as minors who are unaccompanied, who may be involved in immigration proceedings, or the minor children of parents who are in the United States of America illegally. And I'll look up the Supreme Court case. I can't get it in my mind, but I can look it up for you if you need. As a matter of fact, I'll do that right now. It's 52 after the hour on Super Talk. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for Dr. Poss. That's Dr. Stephen Poss. Dr. McLaughlin. That's Dr. Brian McLaughlin. And the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center, growing by leaps and bounds in 2024. That growth just continues in 2025. Why? Because I've been introducing you, in my opinion, if you have mild to moderate sleep apnea, with a better way to sleep at night, a better way to breathe at night, a better way to snore less without having to worry about plugging in a CPAP and dealing with a hose. Look, I'm not knocking the CPAP, especially for those that have serious sleep apnea issues. But if you have mild to moderate sleep apnea, there is an FDA-approved oral device that gently supports your jaw to help you be able to breathe better, snore less without the hose and without the mask. And that's what it's all about. Sleeping through the night, having more energy in the morning, and not bothering your partner with ridiculous amounts of snoring. There are two locations to serve you. One is in Brentwood, the other in Murfreesboro. Why not talk to these guys about this incredible product that could be in your hands? I mean, jiffy, quick, and you sleep better when you get the FDA-approved oral device. Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. If you don't know if you have sleep apnea, call Dr. Poss or Dr. McLaughlin. They'll let you know. drposs.com. That's drposs.com for more information. The Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
Gaza ceasefire, Tennessee special session. Democrats say Governor Lee's trying to strong-arm Republicans who don't support school vouchers. $31 million recovered from Social Security checks sent to dead people. These stories and more at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Matt Murphy and you. We've got a couple of minutes before 4 o'clock. In the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Governor Bill Lee, stopping by the studio. Glad to have him with us. In the 5 o'clock hour, Mayor Freddie O'Connell. At some point, Cameron Smith is going to be by. I mean, I never see the sports guys. They're all excited to talk to me today. You notice that?
I did notice that.
You know what he was asking me?
What's that?
You think the governor has any time after you're done with her? That's what that.
Oh, he's just wanting something.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. That's all right. Plyler versus Doe. Thank you all. Plyler versus Doe. I didn't even have to look it up. Landmark decision in which the United States Supreme Court struck down state statutes denying funding of education for undocumented immigrant children, saying that you could not use that as a reason not to allow illegal immigrant children into your school system if it's a publicly held system. All right, there you go. 1 hour down, 3 to go. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. A Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal reached today between Israel and Hamas. Phases of the agreement call for the release of hostages along with Palestinian prisoners, more humanitarian aid into Gaza, along with reconstruction and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. President Biden says the framework is similar to the proposal he outlined last May.
President Biden said the road to this ceasefire and hostage release deal has not been easy.
I've worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced.
The president said there were many roadblocks and setbacks, but the administration did not give up on diplomacy and said this deal came together because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
The Biden administration and the Trump team working together in those final weeks of talks. The president says the next administration will need to ensure that the deal holds.
Here in Tennessee, there will be 3 issues state lawmakers will deal with in the special session, which Governor Lee called school vouchers, Hurricane Helene disaster relief, and what the governor calls illegal immigration public safety. Democratic state lawmakers accuse the governor of trying to strong-arm Republicans who don't support his school vouchers bill by including that Hurricane Helene relief.
The people in Northeast Tennessee have continued to suffer without vital funds and relief while their governor was trying to destroy their public schools and line up enough votes for a voucher scam, which he is now pairing with that relief as political leverage.
That's Nashville Democrat State Rep John Ray Clemens. Special session kicks off on January 27th. And again, Governor Lee will be in studio with Matt Murphy coming up after the 4:30 news. Federal regulators moving to ban red dye number 3 used in candy, cakes, cupcakes, frostings, and other food you may be eating. Here's Chuck Severson.
A regulation prohibits the Food and Drug Administration from approving a color additive if it's found to cause cancer in people or animals. While some studies showed no cancer link involving red dye number 3, at least 2 studies did show a connection in rats. So the FDA is responding to that, plus a petition from health groups and activists.
There are other approved red dyes. Food manufacturers have until 2027 to reformulate their products, while drug makers will have until 2028. That's not all the FDA is moving to do. It's proposing a plan to reduce nicotine in nearly every tobacco product you smoke by 95%. That does not include electric vaping devices or nicotine patches. And the U.S. government has recovered more than $31 million in Social Security payments that went to dead people. This recovery just the tip of the iceberg, according to one Treasury Secretary official. The money was reclaimed as part of a 5-month pilot program after Congress gave the Treasury Department access to the Social Security Administration's full death master file, the most complete federal database of people who have died. The Treasury projects it will recover more than $215 million and that the effort produced insights into preventing fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Crashes, lots of them. Got 40 eastbound after Broadway, then 40 westbound after Fessler's Lane, 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike, Lebanon Pike at Spence Lane, Harding Place at Danby Drive, 65 northbound at I-40, the South Loop downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hello, friends. Hour number 2 starts right now at the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I thank you for being here on this, our episode 729, and they said it wouldn't last. Locks for Trump Day 319. I'm obligated to grow these things until Inauguration Day, which is, Wednesday, 5 days away. How about that? 5 days away. I might just buzz it all off. You never know.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening either.
That'd be something.
I mean, it's possible. I'm telling you, there's a chance.
If you wanted to make a splash, that'd be one way to do it.
It would be, you know. I mean, you want to see a white bald head. I mean, you want to see a white head. I got one under all this black hair. You ain't seen nothing yet, Dan Mandis. I'll come after him. Nashville's Morning News. By the way, we've got the governor coming up a little bit later on this hour. Happy to have him in studio. I thank the governor for making a little bit of time for us. Obviously, it's a pretty big news day. In as much as we had the regular session gavel in yesterday, there's a lot to say about that. And after gaveling out to recess, the governor this morning announced that he will call for the Tennessee General Assembly to convene a special session starting on Monday, January 27th. I'll just read directly from the call. To pass the Education Freedom Act. Additionally, the governor will introduce a disaster relief package addressing recovery needs for Hurricane Helene as well as future natural disasters. The session will also address public safety measures regarding immigration, with the upcoming Trump administration calling on states to prepare for policy implementation. Governor Lee will issue an official call and provide additional details in the coming days, and we'll ask him about this call coming up in just a couple of minutes. I just want to run down some of this. If you have any questions for the governor, get them in. 615-737-9986. I'll vet said questions, and I'll ask as many as I can get to. Obviously, limited time with the governor, but I'm thankful that he's willing to talk, not to me, but to you. That's the point, right? The governor responds to you, we the people. I guess I can include myself in that number. So I am a mouthpiece for you. So any question that you have to ask, I will ask it. Understand this, though. If your question, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any question, but my job is to vet the question and make sure that the question is applicable to the most amount of people possible. That's the only thing that I do. I don't care where your position is on this. I don't care if you like the governor, hate the governor. I don't care about any of that. I don't care if you like the Education Freedom, what are we calling it? I have it right here. Education Freedom Act. No scholarship, no choice, no nothing. Education Freedom Act. I don't care what you like. Just get them in. 615-737-9986. Now, I will not be actively taking calls. What I'm hoping to do, I'm hoping to work with the governor's people to at some point when they have time to plan it down the road where we can maybe get an hour of his time. And if I'm able to do that, I'm going to dedicate that hour to strictly your calls. And we'll try to get that done. But right now, our time is of such limitation that I don't want to exclude one caller over the next with regard to who we take. So if you have a question and want to get it in via the phones, you can do so in advance of the governor. Otherwise, he's set to be here around 4:30, maybe a little bit earlier. Governor Lee and the legislative leadership of Randy McNally, who is the lieutenant governor. Man, I'm not casting aspersions, but I was talking to someone yesterday. I was texting back and forth with someone yesterday who I apparently missed an event last night that I should have been at. Marsha was there. Glenn Jacobs was there, and I apologize for missing that event. But at that event, Marsha was talking. Well, a lot of people were talking to Marsha about running for governor. I should say Senator Marsha Blackburn. Otherwise, I'm going to offend our loyal super texter. Anyway, now dadgummit, now I've lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was on that. Education Freedom Act. Oh, someone asked, I missed the opening of the session. That's where I was. And I was at a lunch yesterday, and I went back and listened to, and Randy McNally, he seemed tired. Anybody else notice that? I mean, I know he's up there in age. I'm not casting aspersions, like I say. He seemed very tired. Anyway, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, House Speaker Cameron Sexton, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, House Majority Leader William Lamberth made a joint statement along with Governor Lee talking about the Education Freedom Act as well as the other provisions in the special call. The call happens on January 27th. I would assume, based on the numbers of people in the Tennessee General Assembly that are planning on attending inauguration events next week, that we are doing nothing between now and the special session. I would just make that assumption. The special session will deal with the Education Freedom Act, which would establish education freedom scholarships. The act further invests in public schools and teachers by delivering teacher bonuses to recognize their unwavering commitment to student success. Now, many have characterized this, particularly those who were against the Education Freedom Act. I don't count myself in your numbers, but I'm trying to be fair-minded about this. And I understand why some of you would consider that to be, to put it nicely, sweetener, to put it bluntly, bribe. in an effort to get more teachers on board with this thing. We know the teachers' unions aren't on board and never will be. Secondarily, there's also a commitment to increase K-12 facilities funding and to ensure state funding in school districts will never decrease due to disenrollment. Now, that's the biggest part that I want to talk about when we dive into the weeds. Ensuring state funding to school districts will never decrease due to disenrollment. Well, what happens if they lose everybody? Serious question. What happens if a school system in Podunk, Tennessee, wherever, Plum Nelly, Tennessee. My grandma used to say, "Where's he from? Plum Nelly. Plum out the county and Nelly out the state." That's what she said. Anyway, if in Plum Nelly, Tennessee, your enrollment drops from 10,000 students to 5,000 students, you're going to fund that school system at 10,000 students or consistent with what you were that doesn't make any sense. And no offense, I'm sure that the governor can help me out with this, but that doesn't make any sense. Governor Lee and the General Assembly will also maintain their commitment to public schools by further investing hundreds of millions of state dollars in the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement, or TISA, formula and raising starting teacher pay. In addition to that, there is a provision in the call that would call for hurricane relief. Hurricane Helene, unprecedented disaster, estimated cost $1.2 billion in the state of Tennessee. Governor Lee is proposing legislative and budgetary action to support ongoing recovery efforts. The comprehensive plan invests more than $450 million in direct relief. Components include disaster relief grants, a fund that will amount to $240 million, Hurricane Helene interest payment funds, $110 million to establish a fund that will help local government manage loan interest for recovery costs by covering interest cost at 5% per year, and the governor's response and recovery fund, which will be funded to the tune of $100 million. I remember when $100 million was a lot of money. It doesn't seem like a lot of money anymore. To create a new program inspired by the HEAL program, HEAL, that will provide flexible financial resources. And then finally, public safety and immigration. The Tennessee General Assembly will consider public safety measures relating to immigration to ensure the state is prepared for federal immigration policy implementation. Last year, Governor Lee directed key state agencies to begin making those preparations to stand ready on day one of the Trump administration to support efforts to secure our nation's borders and keep communities safe. So the question that comes to mind on disaster relief and Hurricane Helene is, did we see monies going to Hurricane Helene relief in East Tennessee prior to now? And if not, there was a gap in time, and what does that gap in time? I mean, why didn't we do this sooner? I guess is what I'm asking. So we'll talk about that, and then obviously the immigration piece. It's my understanding that Gino Bolso has a bill regarding immigration or illegal immigration that he is introducing. It is Bill 0145, I want to say, that would make it a lot more difficult for businesses to attract and hire illegal immigrants. We'll get into that with the governor as well. Patty is next up in Hendersonville. Hello, Patty. Welcome in. How are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for calling.
Thanks for having me. I just have a quick question. I've been at work all day, so I don't know all the ins and outs of this special session, but are they lumping in all three of these topics together into one bill?
No, ma'am.
Okay, awesome.
No, that
was my concern.
Okay, so I say no, ma'am, because that immediately in my head, I thought, not that I'm not talking about you, Patty, but I thought, well, that would be horribly dumb. No, of course they're not doing that. But then I thought maybe I'm giving too much credit to the General Assembly. So I would assume not. I mean, just because they're in the same call, obviously they're going to be different sets of bills, and I don't expect that these things will be combined in any way. It will be three separate measures that will be dealt with during the special session.
I'm not comparing the Tennessee Assembly to our current federal administration, but coming off of the 4 years we've just had, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I mean, I understand that. I do not expect that this will be a quote-unquote omnibus style package.
Okay. Awesome. That was my question. Thanks
All right.
so much.
Very good, Patty. Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. 615-737-9986. 5937. You know, here's the great thing is that opinions on this matter are dramatically different depending on perspective. They're all over the board. And I'm just trying to get as many opinions and as many perspectives as I possibly can on the issue before we invite Governor Lee to offer his. And 5937 says, I love the idea on the surface of school choice. What I have found over the years, no matter what topic you're talking about, oftentimes a state or a community will find an idea to be grand. But once you get into the details, that's where the devil lives. And once the details pop up, oftentimes everyone finds something to hate. And what I have found, the more you get into the weeds on the Education Freedom Act, the more people find small facets. And I'm not saying anyone's picking nits, but they find small facets of this to hate with regard to the overall bill. They'll just find a small thing, and I hate this, so I hate the whole thing. 5937 says it will fundamentally change education in Tennessee through unintended consequences, and I'm not sure we're ready for that. Tennessee public schools get $7,000 in TISA funds for each student attending the school. If 20 students leave a public school, that school loses $140,000. Those students will most likely be spread out over several grades and classes, not enough in one class to reduce the number of teachers. The cost for the school will not go down noticeably. They say they aren't taking money away from the public education, but it does. No, well, I mean, 5937, I'm just reading from the call delivered from the governor's office that part of the Education Freedom Act will ensure state funding to school districts will never decrease due to disenrollment. And see, I have a difference of opinion with you on that. If you are teaching 100 students and then suddenly you're teaching 60 students, should I be offering you the same money from the state as a block to teach fewer students? And I understand that if you get the same amount of money, then you're benefiting the – I mean, and maybe that's the answer. Maybe I just happened on it. So if you're telling me that the public education system is overburdened with class size – and that 30 students per class is too many students per class. Well, if you lose 5 students within that classroom and you don't lose the funding for those students, you're benefiting the teacher with the result of a smaller class size, so they are better able to teach those students that they still have and continue to fund them in the same fashion. So they don't lose out on chalk or, toilet paper or whatever else there is. 21 after the hour. Superdog 99.7 WTN. Man, the deliciousness that is Savory Spice is so, so good. I love telling you about it. There are 2 locations to take you to Savory Spice. One is over in L&L Market in Nashville on Charlotte Pike. The other's in Franklin, just off the square in Franklin, next to Grace Pharmacy. You'll smell it before you see it. I like to say that because it's true. I mean, when you walk to the doorway of Savory Spice, you smell those delicious smells like you smell at a really, really fancy restaurant. They hit you. All manner of different smells coming at you, from the Italian to the, Mexican or whatever it might be, the types of food that they have, the types of spices to make those food that they have. They have the Spice and Easy line of products, which is pretty cool. If you don't know your way around the kitchen, don't worry. They'll feed you baby birds. Savory Spice will help you by offering Spice and Easy. The Spice and Easy products, there are a lot of different flavors. Like you can do the Sunday pot roast, for example. We've done that at the house, where they tell you exactly what to buy. They tell you exactly what to do in your crock pot. You just put all the spices in there. You don't have to worry about anything else. And bingo bammo, some 4-6 hours later, there you go. You have a delicious meal. Savory Spice, 2 locations, one in Franklin next to Grace Pharmacy. The other is right there on L&L Market on Charlotte Pike. Go by and see them at Savory Spice.
Gaza ceasefire, Tennessee special legislative session, and redefining obesity. We'll tell you about it at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you, 27 minutes after the hour. A couple of minutes with a very special guest. We'll take a short news break, and then we'll have some additional time on the other side with our good friend, Governor Bill Lee. I was challenged to call you Billy, which people thought I was calling you earlier, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Thank you.
But I will call you Governor Lee. Thank you.
It wouldn't have been the first time. But
thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, it's great to be in studio. This is fun. Thanks for having me.
You and I were just talking off the air. I've said publicly, I don't know necessarily what I would be doing right now if November 5th had gone differently.
Yeah.
I would slog along, and you try to pick up the pieces and move along like we did in 2020. But what happened on the national front, what's happening in the state of Tennessee, the excitement about some of the proposals that you've made. I mean, 2025 is going to be a good year.
Yeah. I was actually with President Trump last Thursday night. There was a group of governors that went to Mar-a-Lago, and we were having dialogue back and forth. And I told him, I said, there is a sense of anticipation about the 20th and days beyond. There's an excitement. There's a hope that I feel around just around the communities and around the country. There is a hope for what's happening that I haven't sensed in a long time, and that's exciting.
It is. And there's a lot of excitement, a lot of positive energy regarding your call for a special session. Some questions, maybe some confusion about the call for a special session. Why was this important for you?
Probably 16 or 17 years ago, I worked in a inner city at-risk youth program for boys, and I met a kid, and one thing led to another. I became a mentor with that kid, and what happened is in that process, I saw disparities in educational system that just that shouldn't be there. And that got me really interested in education policy. I didn't know anything about it, but this 15 years ago, and one thing led to another, my increased interest in making sure that every kid has the best opportunity, and that can be accomplished by giving them options for how they're educated. And that's really how school choice was born in my heart, and where we are today is what I think will be a really important step for the kids in the state.
So help those that maybe don't understand it, understand why you wanted to move education, the bill that you are proposing, into its own place to deal with that exclusively. Now, you included a couple of other things with the call, but why it's important to have a special session as opposed to just dealing with this in the General Assembly at large.
Yeah, this issue it made its way through the session last year. A lot of dialogue and a lot of back and forth about it. A lot of things were worked out, but by this fall, there was consensus. So we had an identical bill on the House side and Senate side. So there was agreement between the executive branch, the legislative branch. This is the bill that needs to be delivered, and we should take a special moment. We should take a special time to look at this bill and act on it immediately. It's something that the General Assembly wants to get done, leadership does, We want to, the governor does, but most importantly, the people do. We've now learned through polling and otherwise that 2/3 of the state, including Democrats and Republicans, think that this particular proposal is something that ought to be happening. So when the legislature wants it done and we want it done and the people want it done, then we should call a unique session to get it done. And the other reason is we can implement this program this year in our school systems this coming fall if we pass it in a special, because if we don't, then it goes through the regular session, won't take effect until July 1st, and there's not enough time to get it implemented. Kids would have to wait a whole year and a half, 2 years before this program could go into place.
Special session time frame. I hear as quickly as a week.
Maybe a week.
All right. Quick pause. Ken Weaver's got some news. We're with the governor, Bill Lee. We'll have some extended time with him to talk about the particulars of the Education Freedom Act and the other provisions in the call for a special session. Our very special guest, Governor Bill Lee, we'll be back with him next on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. President Biden says a preliminary deal has been reached by Hamas and Israel starting on Sunday that will pause fighting in Gaza, release some hostages, and pave the way for additional negotiations that could permanently end the fighting.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come.
Biden says his team has been coordinating closely with President-elect Trump's incoming team along the way. Right now in Tennessee, Governor Lee calling a special session to deal with school vouchers, Hurricane Helene disaster relief, and illegal immigration public safety. Here's Channel 4's Stacey Cameron.
So here's how that special session will work. By law, it has to last at least 3 days, 72 hours. During that session, lawmakers in both the House and Senate will put on hold all their other legislative work and work only on the bills that the governor lays out. Now, they will continue to do that until they pass one or more of the bills or until they call them dead.
And the call says all three issues will be dealt with separately. Artificial red number 3 dye in food like candy, cakes, cupcakes, frozen desserts, frostings, icing, certain ingested drugs is being banned in the U.S. for its potential cancer risk. Manufacturers have until January 27 to get it out of food, while those using dye in drugs will have until 2028. And a group of global experts is proposing a new way to define and diagnose obesity.
Obesity would no longer be defined solely by body mass index, a calculation of height and weight. It would be combined with measurements like waist size plus evidence of connected health problems. The reports in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology Journal. It suggests 2 categories: people with clinical obesity, which includes things like heart disease, high blood pressure, liver or kidney disease, would be eligible for treatment. Preclinical obesity would indicate a risk for those types of problems.
About 40% of American adults have obesity, according to the Centers for Disease Control. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. The Gulch 40 eastbound after Broadway got a crash. Crash at 65 northbound and I-40 south, and then Lebanon Pike and Spence Lane. In Woodbine, police reporting a crash 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike, and then in Goodlettsville, we've got a crash 65 northbound at Long Hollow Pike. 40 westbound after Fessler's Lane. Police working a crash. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, I try to be delicate with some of the subjects that we bring up on the Matt Murphy Show, and this is one of them because I'm not trying to get into anybody's business, but I am here to tell you this. The Tennessee Men's Clinic came to the state of Tennessee. They came to Midtown in 2014. Evan Bass brought his company to this state for a reason, to help men who are having issues with energy problems, who are having T-level issues that manifest themselves in a variety of different ways, and I'm here to talk to you about it because if you have found that you're of a certain age and you just don't want to go to the gym anymore, guys, or you're not into working out in the backyard like you used to be, or if these things manifest themselves in more intimate ways, in relationship ways, in bedroom ways, well, if that's the case, go to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They are as discreet as the day is long, and they can fix what ails you. They have a variety of different products that they can provide you. If your T level's down, we want to get it back up to those natural levels to get you back right again in whatever activity you're engaging in. Go to the TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to find out more information or schedule a very confidential appointment today. 2 locations, one's in Cool Springs, opened a couple of years ago, and the other is in Midtown since 2014. Here's the number, 615-208-9090. 615-208-9090 for the Tennessee Men's Clinic.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, we have cleared the field here, and we've got a good, I don't know how long. I'm gonna keep the governor in this room until his folks in the other room start looking at me funny. It's the approach that I use on, when you're on an airplane now and they bring you the basket of peanuts. I take as many peanuts until they start looking at you funny. And when they start looking at you funny, then you stop.
Get your wife to to take a couple bags too.
That's right. Oh, those little cookies. Yeah. Governor Bill Lee is in studio with us talking about his call for a special session. By the way, Chris, Ken, the governor just told me that I said I'm a little sad that you didn't come a couple weeks. I'm glad you're here now, but in a couple of weeks, we're redoing the studio. And he said, and I quote, "I like your retro studio," which cuts.
Well, I'm kind of an old man, so I would like retro.
1998's calling in this studio. All right, let's. I'll get to the other provisions in the special, but obviously, Education Freedom Act. Yeah. When people ask you, Governor, what's this all about? How do you respond?
I think what it really fundamentally is all about is if you got a family that lives in this state. And they live in some county, pick your county, and you ask them where their kid's going to school. The vast majority of them have one option, the school that we tell them that they will go to.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an opportunity in this state to allow that family to use their taxpayer dollars, money that they pay in taxes for education for their children, to let them use those dollars to send their kid to whatever school they want and give them another choice. Not just the choice that we have for them, but we'll give you another choice, and it's your choice. And if you'd like to use it, you can. If you'd like to utilize your public school, you can. And part of our strategy here is to have the best public school systems in the country so that when parents have a choice, they've got really good options for their kid. We'll continue to invest in them, and we'll continue to do the things that we've done since I came in for 6 years to continue to invest in our public schools. 90% of our kids, even after a universal school choice program, 90% of our kids are going to be in public schools. So I just think if we have the capacity in the state to create a vehicle that lets that family have an option, we ought to give it to them.
$7,000, capped at $20,000. The first $10,000 needs based, and then it opens up for all others, with a room for expansion down the road.
Right, expansion down the road if the scholarships are used, and if future General Assemblies appropriate funds for them. So there's no concern about runaway, and yes, it will eventually be opened up to whoever wants it. And that way we understand the scope of this going forward. The other thing about education freedom and a universal school choice program is this is not an experiment. This has been done in other states. In fact, we're starting to get behind the curve a little bit. There's been 11 states that have passed. There's 30 states that have some school choice provision, like we do. But there's 11 states that have got universal school choice, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. But there are some states that have had it for some time, and one state that's had it for over a decade, and that's Florida. So Jeb Bush was a big school choice proponent, and it's transferred from governor to governor. Ron DeSantis implemented universal eventually, but their public school outcomes have gone from the middle of the pack in the country to third best in the country. Their school choice options are broad. It's one of the most robust school choice states in the country. It is the most robust school choice state in the country. And they have one of the best outcomes in their public school systems.
Help the folks understand, Governor, how allowing, and I'm in full agreement with you that anything, I've said for a long time, anything that gives a parent of a child more opportunity to have more say in how their children are educated, and if they see them in a failing system, maybe it's not even a failing system, it's just not working for them.
Right.
Get them in a different system. I'm all for it. How does that benefit the system? In other words, how does some parents deciding to go to a private setting, for example, benefit the public school?
Well, for one thing, we've made certain that it doesn't hurt the public school financially, for example, because that's always the biggest concern. So we have a provision in the part of this bill that says no school is going to lose any funding because of disenrollment should a child leave a public school and go to a private school. We want to make sure there's no penalty for a public school when we implement choice. Now, it's probably not going to happen anyway. 90 of our 95 counties have experienced population growth last year. Our schools are growing. Our public schools are growing. Even with school choice, we're not going to have lowered enrollment in public schools, and it isn't going to happen in our state.
Not to get too much into the weeds,
Yeah.
but that's a part of this that I'm confused about because, the money follows enrollment.
Right.
So if a system has 10,000 students and they lose, and I understand what you just said about growth, but if they lose students, why would they not necessarily lose funding if funding follows enrollment?
Well, because we're gonna ensure that there's a floor to funding for an individual district, and that floor is today. So because the concern is, well, if we lose students, we're going to lose funding. Okay, you're not going to lose funding. You've been set up to operate with the amount of funding that you have. We've put that funding into your school district. You will not lose any funding. You're not going to go backwards. But future students are going to have a choice to go to your school or to another school. And the dollars will follow those future students. There's competition introduced into the entire system. And if your question was, how does the system benefit? If you only had one grocery store in your town, then that grocery store doesn't have to be the best. They don't have to have the lowest price. But if there's two, you're going to get better outcomes from both of those providers.
No, I would agree. I've been saying for years, if you had to go to a specific grocery store to buy bread, do you think the bread quality is going up or down?
Yeah,
and obviously, if they know that they have automatic, I fully get it.
So that's what's happened in Florida. I think that's what you found is you got this robust choice. Parents are going to choose, and all the school systems say, we want to be your choice. The public school systems say, we want to be your choice, and they focus on the things that the parents want.
Did you consider as a mechanism, as opposed to, and I understand the scholarship concept, did you consider tax credits?
Well, we don't have any income tax in the state, if you remember. So that's
property tax credits.
Well, you could, but there's a lot of people whose property taxes
wouldn't
cover the amount, and because we don't have an income tax, there's not a tax credit system that works well for our state.
So there are some that are suggesting that this would give, and the naysayers are going to be that, but I want to cover some of these things and get your thoughts on it. That this gives too much government involvement in private education. They're worried about the old camel's nose under the tent. What's your response?
Well, we've got language, particularly in the bill, that says that the government cannot and will not require information further than what is currently given from private schools, which is generic enrollment type information. So, look, I homeschooled my kids at one point in their life, and then my kids went to public school at one point. They were homeschooled, and they went to a private Christian school. I do not want the government to know what's happening in my kids' life or in the children in the private schools operations. That's not for the government to know about, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen going forward.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that homeschoolers are not included in this because they asked to be excluded, or at least the organizations representing them.
Originally, a year and a half ago, we had homeschool included, but there was a pretty broad sense, and I think a lot of it was the sense that they didn't want to engage in a government program. But so we asked them if they wanted to be in it. The organizations said no, so we took them out.
So you've called the special session, and for those who want to learn more, you included a website, tneducationfreedom.com, tneducationfreedom.com for more information, for any of the questions that I've not asked, and obviously incredibly time limited, and it's such a complex issue, which is one of the reasons I would expect that you call a special session, because you want your General Assembly, or at least you want to give them the opportunity, as does leadership, to be laser focused on the issue.
You get to take 5 days or 4, 5, 6, however long it takes, to talk about nothing but that issue and to do a really deep dive and to make sure you get it right.
But you did find it important enough to include a couple of other things in the special call. Some have asked me, have we been funding? Because when they heard that Hurricane Helene relief was included in the special session, the immediate question for those perhaps that don't know, well, haven't we been already doing that for East Tennessee? Are we not already providing some state funding for those counties impacted and affected. I expect that has been going on. What is this in addition to what has already been happening?
Yeah, we have been, for example, TDOT has been, at work 24/7 really as a result of this disaster, opening back up I-40. We built temporary bridges in 30 days on an interstate. I mean, TDOT's been at work, spending money, obviously engaged heavily. Our emergency management TEMA agency has been working from day one there. So yes, there's been a significant amount of funds already spent. But what we know is that the devastation and the financial catastrophe that this has been for these 10 counties, certainly for 5 or 6 or 7 of them, most importantly. And these are rural, and most of them oftentimes distressed. So these are lower income, very rural counties. They have very low tax base. They have very little capacity to absorb significant financial losses, which they have incurred. For example, our state, we have estimated that the damages from Helene are $1.2 billion for our state. To put that in context, the 2020 tornadoes were $100 million. Mm-hmm. This is an enormous sort of historic event for us from a financial loss. So we are putting into place new vehicles of funding for these counties going forward, now understanding the scope, now understanding what the federal government is going to do, what FEMA will do. So in any emergency, FEMA provides dollars, but they only provide a portion. There's a cost share that counties have to put in. So these counties can't afford the cost share. So these are some of the vehicles that we're going to put into place. We have spent the last 3 months calculating how much we think it's going to take to fill in the gaps that the counties cannot provide on their own. And that's what we've come up with. We have this new disaster relief grant that's $240 million. And that is a calculated amount that we believe will fill the gap for those counties. Mm-hmm. We've got a interest payment fund. Here's another thing. Counties can borrow to provide relief for their communities, but they can't afford the interest payments. They can afford to pay it back in time, but they can't afford the interest payments. So we've created an interest payment fund, a response and recovery fund. There are 2 or 3 pieces and vehicles that address the unique needs of this particular disaster. And then we created this response and recovery fund for future disasters and put $100 million in it. That was a desire for us to put before the General Assembly. While we're at this, let's address Helene, but let's put in place a disaster fund that begins to address future recurring disasters so that every time we have a disaster, we don't have to all huddle around and say, what do we do next? We've got those funds immediately available to get to counties.
You know this. I don't have to tell you that anyone in leadership, you're going to have your fair share of critics.
Yeah.
And when I try to understand the criticism of Governor Bill Lee, I hear more than anything. I mean, we hear, a lot about COVID-19, and that's fine. I understand that. There was a lot of confusion about that. I won't go over that again. But I hear them telling me a lot about what you haven't done with regard to immigration.
Yeah.
And you included a piece regarding immigration in the special session. And I'm curious to marry kind of these two concepts, to speak to those critics that say, well, the governor hasn't done anything on his own to stop illegal immigration. I mean, I know and you know that a lot of that has to do with the federal government, but do you feel like there's more that you can do? And what is your plan in the special, or at least what do you hope the General Assembly accomplishes in the special with regard to illegal immigration?
Well, one thing I believe is about to happen is that we are about to take a step in the right direction as it relates to illegal immigration in this country. President Trump was elected, in a significant way in November. And one of the reasons was because of what he believes about the border and what he believes needs to be done on this immigration issue, which is in large part a federal issue. That's federal law that drives these policies, and he knows it. But he's been very clear about what he wants to do, and Americans understood clearly what he was saying, and they elected him to accomplish it. He's been very clear, for example, about deporting criminals who are illegally in this country. That being step one in making sure that the wrong people that are in our neighborhoods are not in America. The vast majority of Americans absolutely think that's the right thing to do. Tennessee thinks that's the right thing to do. The governor thinks that's the right thing to do. So what do we need to do is be ready. I was with him last week, as I said. I went to Mar-a-Lago. We sat around and talked about different issues coming forth, and this was one of them. And part of the gathering of governors last week with him was to say, we have an opportunity to move quickly on issues, whether it's energy policy or public safety or immigration, but I need you all to be ready. And this is an effort to be ready. We will be ready on day one when President Trump comes in. This legislation that we will pass, and we don't have it ironed out yet, we will during the special session, but it'll really authorize the engagement with the federal government. It will appoint a main, point of contact for the state of Tennessee to oversee the collaboration between the federal government and its immigration policy and the boots on the ground in Tennessee. So that's what we're going to do here, because we should be doing it.
I'm going to get killed by Weber, but in the minute or so that we have left, I would be remiss if I didn't circle back to one component of the Education Freedom Act, because I'll be killed if I don't ask you about this component.
Go ahead.
And that is you're also including bonuses in the package, and can we fairly characterize that as a sweetener? I mean, some people are using we're trying to bribe teachers to get them on board with this package. I'm sure you've heard those criticisms. Why was it important to include? I mean, I think everyone wants our teachers fairly paid and better paid. Yeah. But why was it important to include it in this package?
Well, there's several things in this package that are for public schools, right? There's a funding formula that provides for facilities funding that didn't exist before. There is a provision for high performing schools. There are a number of things, including a bonus for public school teachers, that are a part of enhancing our public school system. In part, you know why? Because what we want to do is remind everyone this is not meant to punish the public school system or teachers. This is a both and. There is no reason that we can't have the best public schools in the country and give parents choice at the same time. I want to have the right amount of funding, the right amount of commitment. If we're going to have the best public schools, we got to have the best and brightest teachers. We're raising their teacher pay to be a top 10 state in the country. We're going to speed that up. So why is it in there? Because we care about our public schools.
Governor Bill Lee, a great conversation. Thank you for coming in. Let's not make it the last time. I look forward to any conversation you're willing to have with us, and we appreciate your time explaining your call for a special, and we'll talk again very soon.
You're a good man, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. There's Governor Bill Lee, 58 after the hour on Super Talk. What's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy talking about the one and only Glock store. I absolutely love this place. Lenny McGill has such a special story. He was in San Diego, California, and he was booming. His business was booming, but the state didn't like him. They didn't like his business model. They didn't like him. And the tax burden on businesses in that state was such that he looked all over the country for somewhere to come. And 4 years ago, he landed in Nashville, Tennessee. Now they're right off Elm Hill Pike on Airlane Drive, a beautiful facility at the Glock store, and you just need to see it to understand it. The retail space is incredible. They, of course, have the Shoot 270 rooms. They don't do lanes at the Glock store. They do rooms because you get a private instructor, you get a room to yourself or with your companion, and you can shoot in a 270-degree fashion, unlike the lane style shootings, which better replicates life and is a better way to train. And this month in January, if you mention my name, you get a full auto H&K suppressed MP5 just for mentioning my name to shoot during your time at Shoot 270. Just sign up for shoot270.com, shoot270.com, and I'll see you at the Glock store.
5 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. Israel and Hamas announced they have reached a tentative agreement that would end the more than year-long war in Gaza and free hostages kidnapped in the October 7th attacks. President Biden at the White House says the framework of that deal is close to his plan proposed back in May, winding down the war in phases, getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, Israeli forces withdrawing, and bringing the remaining hostages home, including Americans.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony.
The president says the brokered talks with Middle East leaders also included working together with the incoming Trump administration, acting as one voice for the U.S. President-elect Trump, in a social media post, took credit for reaching the deal. The deal kicks in on Sunday.
The ingredient in food to make it look bright cherry red, getting banned for its cancer risk. Red dye number 3, used in candy, cakes, cupcakes, frostings, and other food you may be eating. While some studies showed red dye number 3 did not cause cancer in people, at least 2 other studies showed a connection in rats. So, under Food and Drug Administration regulations, it must revoke the okay for its use as a food additive. And the FDA is moving to reduce the level of nicotine in cigarettes, cigars, and pipe tobacco. They want to cut it by 95%. The FDA's proposal does not include e-cigarettes, other vape products, hookahs, smokeless tobacco products, or nicotine pouches. Here in Tennessee, Governor Lee calling a special session to deal with his Education Freedom Act that gives families state tax dollars to send their kids to private schools. Critics say it will cause public schools to lose money when students leave for private schools. But Governor Lee telling WTN's Matt Murphy Show that's not going to happen.
We have a provision in the part of this bill that says no school is going to lose any funding because of disenrollment should a child leave a public school and go to a private school. We want to make sure there's no penalty for a public school when we implement choice.
Lee says another reason is that 90 of Tennessee's 95 counties have experienced population growth, which means schools won't see lower enrollment. He says disaster relief for Hurricane Helene victims and illegal immigration public safety measures will be dealt with separately in this special session from the school vouchers. And the government has recovered more than $31 million in Social Security payments that improperly went to dead people.
This recovery is just the tip of the iceberg, in the words of an assistant Treasury secretary. The money was reclaimed as part of a 5-month pilot program after Congress gave the Treasury Department access to the Social Security Administration's full death master file, the most complete federal database of people who have died. The Treasury projects it will recover more than $215 million and that the effort produced insights into preventing fraud, waste, and abuse.
Chuck Severson reporting, and the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Let's run down the list of crashes. 40 eastbound after Broadway, 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike, Lebanon Pike at Spence Lane, Fessler's Lane south of Murfreesboro Pike, 65 northbound at Long Hollow Pike, 65 northbound right there at the South Loop downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning. A Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 5:08. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Matt Murphy Show in progress. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome those of you getting off work, getting on the roadways. I'm sad to report that the roadways are not very good right now, but they'll get better. Yeah, thumbs up. Yay. Ken Weaver's got all the reports that you need to know about in that regard. Thank you to the governor, Governor Bill Lee, stopping by for a few moments. And it just so happens, originally Governor Lee was scheduled on Monday. And then I think they're counting votes on this special session, let's be honest. So they didn't want to call the special. So then they had to move the call back to Tuesday. And then I was asked, we can't get it out till Wednesday morning. Can we do Wednesday? And so that butts right up against to our next guest. Cameron Smith's also here. He's normally here on these Wednesdays, and I appreciate Cameron being here. Hello, Cameron.
Hello.
How are you?
Look, I'm just the entertainment here. Like, you got the heavy hitters coming in.
Yeah, that's enough out of you because I got to talk to this guy. No, I'm just, you chime in anytime if you got questions that I'm not asking of our next guest. And I just told our next guest we got the warm-up act, the governor of the state of Tennessee, out of the way. Now it's time for Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell.
Matt, great to be back with you. And, of course, I see that you clearly and carefully scheduled this so that I would just miss the governor.
I tried to, you know what? Cameron was acting as a pick. We were trying to get him to hang out a little bit longer. They actually asked, the sports guys actually asked the governor if he wanted to come on and talk sports. And the governor said, they don't want to hear from an Auburn Tiger fan.
Yeah, Auburn basketball right now.
Right. And so the governor, showing his political deftness, just kind of avoided that. Well, it's good to have you. How are things going?
I think if we reflect on 2024, we got a lot of great things done for the city. And one of those was one we were just talking about. And I think it's really interesting because I've had a regular series of conversations with the governor over the course of the past year and change. That's been a very positive dialogue. I think, as you know, for a couple of big issues we talked about last year, East Bank is moving forward. We got the transit improvement program approved. Hopefully that'll have a long-term positive impact on some of the traffic you were talking about. And just generally speaking, thinking about this past weekend, we made a set of intentional improvements to our snow removal program under the Nashville Department of Transportation, and people seem to be much more pleased this year with the performance of that program.
You recently had a sit-down. I want to say it was with the Tennessean, if I'm not mistaken, but it could have been with someone else. No, I think it was with the Tennessean, kind of reflecting on 2024. And I guess in a way, I have to give you credit for this, even if I might disagree with what you had to say, because you were asked after the transit tax, now that it has passed, and obviously some of the courtroom drama is behind us with regard to whether or not it will go into effect. You were asked whether or not you expect that there will be a look at increased property taxes, and you were pretty straightforward that this is the year. I mean, tell me if I'm characterizing what you said wrongly, but this is the year to do that, to relook at property taxes and potentially see some of those going up.
Yeah, that's fairly consistent with Metro's history, and I think you probably paid attention to this too. We just had a changeover in our finance director for Metro. Kevin Crumbo had come in and spent a little more than a year as our interim finance director, and now we have our permanent finance director, who just started this week, Janine Kaufman-Reed, and Kevin had talked to the Nashville Business Journal as one of his final, kind of an exit interview from the standpoint of Metro Finance. And a couple things from that conversation. We're in an incredibly strong position with our city credit rating. We're in the strongest position we've been in a long time from a fund balance, basically our rainy day fund perspective. But he's been very candid all the way along that we have to be in a position where two things happen at the same time. We live within our means as best we can. We kind of took what is usually a 4-year revenue cycle and stretched it to a 5th with no increase. And then as we look at our property values and look at how we have to pay for growth, that's the second thing we have to do.
So how can we help me marry these two concepts? Because on one hand, I hear the mayor of Nashville saying, we need to provide more affordable housing in Davidson County. And on the other hand, I hear you saying property taxes are going up. And I think we would agree that even if I'm renting, that I'm naturally going to see the result of increased property taxes as a renter in Davidson County.
We're incredibly sensitive to that. And when I was on the Metro Council, I did not want to get too far ahead of the curve in terms of the considerations we had on budgets there. And in fact, I spent a couple years pretty diligently looking at the lowest possible scenario we could find for what a property tax rate increase might be, because even back then we were starting to see that cost of housing rise. We know from kind of an inflationary period post-COVID, there have been concerns about groceries, and that's why overall this year the function of government is going to be focused almost exclusively on affordability and access to programs that help people offset costs, many of them already in play. There has been an increase in the property tax freeze and relief program that we hope people over the age of 65 on fixed incomes will take advantage of, veterans, et cetera. But to your point, one of the things we got some good analysis on was that sort of household by household impact. And as long as we keep things, I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of we want to consider costs and benefits. As long as we're seeing the kinds of scenarios that we know are good, like snow removal, trash collection, public safety, because we know, for instance, that Metro Nashville Police Department is suggesting from a staffing study they've done, they want to see more officers on the streets. We're not going to announce anything big and shiny and new in this budget cycle, but we have seen some investments that were made in that COVID timeframe that we think are worth continuing, and we want to be able to fairly evaluate those staffing needs from a public safety perspective.
I know Cameron has a question. I want to get in front of him, but I buried the lead. How much snow did you get over? You're in Germantown, Salem Town? Germantown?
We measured
How much did you get over there?
We got just shy of 4 inches.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's enough for a snowman. Cameron?
Enough to build a snowman and go sledding.
There you go.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of our listeners right now just heard you say, hey, property tax hike. Like that's the thing they heard.
That'll be the headline anytime we have a conversation.
Yeah, write a lot of headlines. That's clearly the hook. The question, though, is weighing against the benefit. I mean, you've kind of danced around some things, but you said nothing big and shiny. What is the need that's going to be met by a property tax hike?
It is literally going to be the fact that government, like any business, like any household, also sees inflationary costs. And so we know that the Metro employee base over the past several years we've looked at cost of living considerations for them. We do have a salary study underway that we hope will give us some good peer city analysis and best practices to look at as we put together a pay plan, which is always part of the budget on a year-over-year basis. And then we will be evaluating those continuity programs. When we went through COVID, we saw some strong performance from some new programmatic initiatives at Metro schools. We'd prefer not to cut those. We think things like having universal school nurses is a good public need. But in order to sustain that, we are up a little bit from a budget standpoint from where we were before COVID. If we have a staffing increase at MMPD, that is new cost. And so some of it is just that curve of where inflation also impacts Metro government. And the thing about it is the property tax rate will probably wind up being lower. And so some people will see the actual amount of property taxes they pay go marginally down. But it all depends on where, ultimately this is all driven by what the assessor's office determines property values are across the county. We also need to figure out, did property values continue to go up? We think commercial office properties may have declined in value some. So there will be a mix of factors.
Can you explain this concept to people in Washington that, when you go up for spending, you have to go up with taxes if you want to keep it there? It's kind of neat.
One thing that I would be delighted to explain is the benefits of having a balanced budget. And so we do that every year, and it's one of the reasons why we have the strongest credit rating we've had in Metro history. It's also, we have been very attentive in the past few years of not getting ourselves into a position where we are looking at kind of a severe cut scenario or extreme austerity scenario, or what we hope to avoid, which would be an unusually large increase.
I mean, not that I'm one to defend the federal government, but it's a lot easier to have a balanced budget when you pass a transit plan that opens the door for some federal transportation money that alleviates
that. That part's not related to the general fund. That's not related to the operating budget.
Well, but I'm saying that if you don't have those monies have to go. I mean, I'm just suggesting that the Nashville takes its fair share of federal dollars.
We do, but Tennessee actually, on the whole, receives more than we send, which is an advantageous space to be. From a Nashville perspective, though, we deliver our city services. In fact, one of the benefits of the transit plan is it will take pressure off the general fund. We will start to see the WeGo budget line item decline over time.
We'll take a quick time out. We've got another segment with our man, Mayor Freddie O'Connell, in studio with us. Cameron Smith is with us as well. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for Brentwood Hearing Center. Here's the wonderful news from Brentwood Hearing Center. Ronnie and his team have been around for about 30 years now, right? They're right off the interstate. You probably see their location right there in Brentwood. So Brentwood Hearing Center has a team of audiologists. They're constantly scouring for the latest and greatest technologies. This is not your grandmama and grandpapa's hearing aid. These new devices, including the Phonak Sphere, are incredible. The Phonak Sphere is specifically designed and dedicated to helping patients hear well in situations where there's a lot of background noise. So if you work in a setting where there's a lot of talking in the background, or perhaps you want to go to a sporting event, a ball game with your grandson or your granddaughter, whatever it might be, this specifically addresses that issue, and it pinpoints the voice that is in front of you and eliminates some of the background noise that's behind you. It's just one of the many options that they have at Brentwood Hearing Center. Wonderful company. They say better hearing for a better life for a reason, because if you can't hear, you find yourself, and I've seen it, people start checking out of circumstances where they know they won't be able to hear. Let's get back to life again with Brentwood Hearing Center. 615-377-0420, 377-0420, or go to BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. Better hearing for a better life at Brentwood Hearing Center.
Gaza ceasefire. Governor Lee answers critics of his special session to enact school vouchers. And the FDA is moving to ban red dye in our food and drinks. These stories and more coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Ken Weaver. He's back there in News Closet B. We're having a good time in our fresh studios that were called Retro by Governor Bill Lee.
That's hurtful.
We're doing it. Like our boss has announced, Freddie O'Connell, mayor of Nashville, is in with us. Our boss has announced that like next week we have to vacate the studios because they're going to gut these and like freshen them up a little bit.
Look at you.
And I mentioned to the governor, I was like, man, I wish we had you, after that because you could see the news. And he goes, no, this is retro. Like, well, I didn't want you to cut me.
We're operating out of a dorm room, right?
That's what it feels like.
Do retro studios have a camera octopus in the middle?
And yes, they do. As a matter of fact.
Then yes.
All right, Cameron during the break said he wanted us to yell at one another a little more, so let's do it. So what is taking so long on LPRs? We see some of these other communities, Mayor O'Connell, we see their success. I mean, Mount Juliet, my adopted hometown, they've had great success on these things. Where are we?
So we have a legislative calendar prepared that we thought we were going to be able to execute last year, and we had discussed this with the Metro Nashville Police Department, and we agreed that we would tackle the expiring Fusus contract first. And for your listeners, Fusus is a technology that allows already installed cameras, usually by businesses, but it allows Metro Nashville Police to access in real time on the basis of a request for service cameras that are already installed. And we felt like this was a common sense opportunity for, as we have now seen scenarios in New Orleans, the New York City scenario, where camera access can absolutely be an assist to law enforcement as they are pursuing suspects, or in some cases intervening in crime in real time. And because these cameras were installed yesterday, they will be installed tomorrow. It makes sense to us that this is not an expansionary scenario. This is taking advantage of an existing capability and basically bringing law enforcement to it faster than they would.
Your office in favor of Fusus?
Our office is in favor of that.
All right. So where it was voted down.
So
by the council.
I think on a timing scenario, we got to it a little later. Some of the Fusus contract work came out of procurement a little slower than we anticipated, which meant it didn't happen until fourth quarter, and we came up one vote short in the Metro Council.
Is it coming back up?
It is coming back up. We actually had a council member who voted against it, who reached out and has filed some legislation that I think may address some of his concerns and possibly some of his colleagues that we hope will increase the confidence of council in this program. We heard not only at public hearing, but even in some of the floor discussion among council members, some things that were either generalized fears that don't apply to this program, or in some cases, unfortunately, some inaccurate information about the program. And we believe, I will say one of my top priorities this year is continuing to ensure that the Metro Nashville Police Department and all of our overall public safety platforms help us drive down the number of homicides in the city. We think this is a good public safety goal and metric, and we want to make sure that Nashvillians both are safe and feel safe, and so we think this is a good approach.
I don't like this. I'm agreeing with him. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
but
let's go to the LPRs.
Yeah,
in that agreement with MMPD, we knew we would tackle LPRs as soon as we could after we delivered Fusus, and that is still our intent. So we have to clear the hurdle of Metro Council. They are right now. All of these things have a legislative component that must be approved by the Metro Council, but we are actively pursuing both Fusus and LPRs.
What are the objections that you're hearing from the council, and are you actively engaged in trying to address those counselor by counselor?
Very much so. This is why we had, after the original Fusus proposal, and again, the vote coming after, so we filed it. There was a public hearing that was required. Then the election happened, and I think there was some increased concern in some communities across Nashville that reached some council members. We understood that. We worked to increase the kind of accountability within the contracts and make some provisions that should increase confidence. We think this next bill will do that further, and it's a good sign to us that Several council members who opposed the contracts are now on board with this language, and we think that may give them sufficient comfort and confidence to get there on the final vote.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, we're talking about license plate readers, LPRs.
Oh, right, pardon me.
Not legal permanent residents, not done any other LPR.
But the reason we've been taking it sequentially is, frankly, that question about concerns. Broadly, there have been some, kind of privacy concerns embedded in bigger discussions about surveillance, that too much personal information available there may mean you could, for instance, track your movements around the city, whether you are, visiting Frugal McDougal or going to a healthcare appointment.
No, civil libertarians and watchdogs in the civil libertarian space are just as aggressively against this as others, maybe for different reasons. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of disagreement across the board.
I will say, I spent quite a bit of time while I was on the Metro Council pursuing safeguards to ensure that we protected as much of that as we could while making sure that we advance public safety. We didn't have a lot of success in engaging around the language and contracts when I was on the Metro Council, but that's one of the key differences here. We have taken some key policy steps with both FUSIS and license plate readers that we think we are striking a more effective balance between privacy concerns and delivery of public safety.
Speaking of public safety and a balance, I gave you credit for not I don't want to say knee-jerk. That's the first phrase that comes to mind. In the aftermath of Riley Strange sadly losing his life in downtown Nashville, there were several calls for major changes, fencing along the Cumberland River and things. You were very concerned about the safety of the people that come into our city, obviously. I know that you are as mayor. You want to see that tourism continue, but you also cautioned against doing something just to do something without studying the situation. I think you took a similar approach after the New Year's Day attack, the terrorist attack in New Orleans. Where are you in the assessment of safety downtown Broadway? Because obviously that's a honeypot for the possibility that someone would want to do a disastrous terrorist act like that.
Right, and we take all of that incredibly seriously. Just to give you some sense of what my New Year's Eve looked like, I did go down to the Bicentennial Mall footprint, and then I went over and visited with all of our first responders and all the support personnel at the Emergency Operations Center. And from there, you get a great look at how advantageous it is to have real-time cameras, because they could survey the entire footprint of the Bicentennial Mall where the major live broadcast and all that was anchored. But then you could also get a look at Broadway. And, in those scenarios, you see that, but you also see we have some safety things in place. Segments of Broadway are closed when there is extraordinarily high pedestrian volume, as there was on New Year's Eve. And I guess the good news is...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but is Lower Broad, is it closed on the weekends permanently?
Not. There's kind of a safety threshold that Metro Nashville Police
when they shut it down.
And often it's block by block.
Automobile
it's
traffic,
not
obviously.
Just like a closed 1st to 5th environment. Usually you still use the cross streets,
right?
But you may find that space on either side of Broadway from block to block.
And it's just once foot traffic gets to a certain amount, they decide that for the better safety of everyone.
And so usually that's a Friday, Saturday, sometimes Thursday, just depending on what's happening, or major events when you've got, let's say, a Preds game or a major concert at Bridgestone, and or maybe something's happened at Nissan, whatever. But getting to have that firsthand experience going back down at midnight, we already had some intelligence after the tragedy in Magdeburg at the Christmas market that you may have remembered, that there may be an attack in an American city. And this is great where we have local partnership with state, TBI, THP, Department of Homeland Security at state and federal levels. There's great intelligence sharing. So I think that also had informed, as soon as I took office, we had a downtown threat assessment already in hand. State partners, Homeland Security were involved in that. So we were already in progress in looking at cost and feasibility for things like retractable bollards on Broadway. That work is always in progress. And to your point, we don't want to sit still and only be reactive. We want to be in a position where we're doing disaster scenario planning. And so that's constantly ongoing.
Freddie, I know you have to go, but one final thought from me. Cameron, if you have any, by all means, share it. But, we've got a lot of construction going on the east side, a lot of excitement over there, big stadium coming up. Can you, as mayor of Nashville, promise us that once this stadium is constructed, we'll actually have a winning Titans football team? Can we?
That'd be great.
I mean, would you?
I cannot sit here and make this promise. However, what I will tell you is the Titans organization is motivated from a business standpoint. I made the mistake. So long ago, I befriended a Houston Texans fan. Little could I have known that our home game would be such a, kind of disastrous condition for the team and everything. And the weather only made it worse, but I did go to our final home game, which was cold and intermittently wet. And we lost, but we lost in front of a crowd. When I got to the stadium just a little bit after kickoff, there might have been 4,000 people there, which is not a great scenario from a ticket standpoint. And so the team wants to win. The team wants to win. I want them to win. It is much more fun to watch a team that is, chasing the playoffs and a Super Bowl. And I remember how exciting it was when the Titans first arrived and we went on a Super Bowl run, just as today got to see the inaugural kind of gold hall with the Predators as they were inducting Pecorini, among others, and remembering that 2017-2018 Stanley Cup run.
Freddie O'Connell, mayor of Nashville, thank you for your availability. Thank you for coming in and answering the questions. I appreciate your time.
Glad to do it. Glad to be with you guys.
We're
Thanks.
late. It's 34 after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. President Biden says a preliminary deal has been reached by Hamas and Israel starting on Sunday to pause the fighting in Gaza, release some hostages, and to pave the way for additional negotiations that would permanently end the fighting there. And President-elect Trump's team was included.
I knew this deal would have to be implemented by the next team, so I told my team to coordinate closely with the incoming team to make sure we're all speaking with the same voice, because that's what American presidents do.
Biden says his team, Biden says that the ceasefire will go into effect on Sunday. Governor Lee has called a special session to deal with his Education Freedom Act to give families state tax dollars to send their kids to private schools. Critics say it will cause public schools to lose money when students leave for private schools. Governor Lee tells WTN's Matt Murphy show the bill has protections against that.
It's probably not going to happen anyway. 90 of our 95 counties have experienced population growth last year. Our schools are growing. Our public schools are growing. Even with school choice, we're not going to have lowered enrollment in public schools, and it isn't going to happen in our state.
Lee says school vouchers, disaster relief for Hurricane Helene victims, and illegal immigration public safety will all three be dealt with separately in the special session that starts January 27th. Federal regulators moving to ban red dye number 3, which is used in candy, cakes, cupcakes, frostings, and other food you may be eating. Here's Chuck Sievertson.
Well, some studies showed red dye number 3 did not cause cancer in people or animals. At least 2 other studies showed a connection in rats. So under Food and Drug Administration regulations, it must revoke the okay for its use as a food additive. The FDA is also responding to a petition from health groups and activists.
Other approved red dyes in food. Food manufacturers will have until 2027 to reformulate their products, while drug makers will have until 2028. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Let's go over the crashes. South Loop, 40 eastbound after 65. We've got the 2 right lanes blocked, 440 eastbound near the Woodland Drive overpass in Green Hills. Earlier accident, 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike. And in Belmont, 65 northbound at Wedgwood Avenue. Antioch Bell Road, just west of I-24. And 65 northbound before Vietnam Veterans Boulevard, exit 95. In Goodlettsville, a crash reported 65 northbound at Long Hollow Pike. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, I hear a lot of people talking about healthcare, and they ask the question, why can't things be the way that things used to be? And I get it, but you don't want everything to be the way that it used to be because we used to use leeches, and you don't want that. But here's the deal. What you want, what you're asking for, I think what you're asking for, you want modern medicine, today's medicine, 2025 medicine, delivered the old-fashioned way, meaning there's a doctor-patient relationship, that you know your doctor, that you can call and get an appointment when you're sick. Here's the one, my biggest beef about the industry nowadays is this. If I get sick and you call your physician, they're like, okay, you can come in 2 weeks. It does not happen at Grace Point Healthcare, and I want to tell you why. Because Grace Point Healthcare is a direct pay facility, meaning that nobody gets in between you and your doctor. They offer incredible. The basic Smart Care plan is $69 a month. And when I say incredible, it's an incredibly low price where you get free office visits and free basic labs and diagnostic testing. Just call to find out how this works. It's incredible. Now, you don't have to become a member of the basic Smart Care plan to walk in to Grace Point Healthcare. As a matter of fact, more often than not, when you make a call, if you get a cold, you get a flu, bug, you make a call and you will come in same day or next day for most patients. At Grace Point, you're usually seen there even with new patients. They even do house calls, for goodness sake, if you're too sick to come in. That's what it's all about at Grace Point Healthcare. Modern medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. Give them a call and schedule an appointment today. 599-6868. That's 599-6868 for Grace Point. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, oh man, it's been loaded up. Get your calls in if you so desire. You want to reflect on Governor Bill Lee being on the show in the 4 o'clock hour. We had him for the better part of 20 minutes or so. And then right on the heels of Governor Bill Lee, Freddie O'Connell, mayor of Nashville, stops by. And through it all, there's Cameron Smith. He's a stalwart on these Wednesdays.
And only one of us is still here.
That's true. Last man standing.
Well, I guess two.
Okay, yeah, I'm here too. Yeah. But I have to be.
Yeah.
They make me. So what do you think of Freddie?
I like him. And what I mean by that is I'm going to disagree with him on a number of policy points. I don't love the idea of we're going to have a property tax and we'll explain the details later. As far as, politicians tend to get a little squishy on the specifics. Definitely property tax increase, squishy on specifics. But I like that he's honest about the math. I like that he's saying we had some spending during COVID that we liked and we want to keep it. By contrast, Washington's like, we had some spending during COVID that we liked, and we're going to keep it, but we're not going to pay for it. And that's what's happening.
Well, and I would maintain, while I don't know the specifics, and I'm not trying to ding Freddie or Nashville specifically, but, local municipalities, states have the benefit of receiving certain federal dollars.
Yes.
That is fake money. That's made up money. But that being out there, I will say, it is what it is. And if you live in Davidson County, you've got a mayor saying, if you want these are the services that we feel like you want, and this is how we're going to pay for it. Now, a lot of people on the super text line don't like the idea of increased property taxes.
Understandable.
As a matter of fact, they hate the idea of increased property taxes, and I'm hearing you. I'm here for you. I hear you.
Yeah, let's not mistake that you or I either are saying property tax is good.
No.
We're not a high tax show at all. Like this station, Matt, me, everybody's saying, whoa, we should be real skeptical about more of your money going to the government. What I heard the mayor say is, okay, if we want stuff, we got to pay for it. And unfortunately, we want more than we have money to pay for.
The slow walk on some of the public safety stuff is infuriating. But it's hard to argue with a guy that says that he's in favor of FUSIS and in favor of the LPRs, and he wants to do them in that order. I wonder if he has the gravitas as mayor to twist the arms of certain city councilors that are saying no. Just it feels like to say no. I don't know, what other justification outside of, we're worried that they're going to come after illegal aliens. Well, there are provisions in this ordinance that would not allow for that type of. But whether we should or not, I wonder
what the changes are. Like he said, there's legislation introduced. Right. There's some changes. Let's check out those in a little more detail.
They can stick. Here's 2528. This is very representative of the property tax.
I bet.
They can stick that property tax right up there. Bleep. I don't want to hear his excuses. Enough people move here every day, and houses are popping up everywhere. They just raised it 30-some% last year, the year before. I think that was the year before I got here. I think that was 2020 or 2021, I want to say. But one way or the other. Last year or the year before. No way they aren't already overcompensating for inflation. It's going to give us more inflation, and we got enough as it is.
Yeah. Well, and the other one that he mentioned that I know goes over like a lead balloon is, we're looking at the pay of Metro employees to keep up with inflation, while the base did not get pay increases that necessarily kept up with inflation.
Right.
So wait a minute. Why do those who depend on the taxpayer get their salaries to keep up with inflation, but the taxpayer doesn't?
I did get a little scoop off air. That's interesting. I didn't get anywhere on the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway decision-making, by the way. He hides. I say hides. I didn't ask the question on air, so I'm not going to ding Freddie for this. But for those of you asking me where we are on the fairgrounds, because Bristol Motor Speedway has offered a tremendous amount of money to upgrade the fairgrounds, general consensus is the reason that is languishing is because John Ingram, who owns the soccer team and the soccer stadium, Geodis Park, wants it to languish because he wants that property. That is the general rumor and consensus of people in the know. Freddie is kind of slow-walked it. The charter now says, the Nashville charter, Metro charter says that there has to be a speedway on that property. Of course, it also says that you have to have a fair on that property, and they removed that. Now there has been a movement to change the charter. There's been a petition to change the charter, and Freddie says he has to consider that petition before they can move forward with the Bristol Motor Speedway stuff. And I think that's hiding behind the petition itself. That said, I did get a skinny, a little something. And that is, he told me, I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this or not. Well, I'm going to say it because he wouldn't tell me who, because he said I can't say who. But he told me what. And the what is that it's his understanding that the scrapyard is under contract. So there was an auction of the scrapyard right down near the interstate.
Everybody knows what it is.
Everybody knows what a scrapyard is, right? And it's long been considered an eyesore, and it's ugly, and it's right downtown, and it's right next to the nicest parts of town. And what are we doing here? Well, that's just a remnant from that industrialized past that was downtown Cumberland River property. And the owner of the scrap. And here was a nice thing that Freddie said off air. And I've been buttering his bread too much, but whatever. He said, there was a strong movement when I was on the council to force that issue, to push the
eminent
owners,
domain,
to push the owners of that property to get rid of the property because it was so ugly. And we didn't do it. And he said, now I would make the argument that with Oracle coming in on the north side, with everything that's happening on the East Bank, with the stadium construction, the free market took over that issue. And he said nobody forced anybody to sell, to do anything. They saw that it was an opportunity to make maximum dollars on their property, and they took advantage of that and went to auction with it.
And now it's going to be an airplane graveyard, which is awesome.
He wouldn't tell me what. He wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't tell me what. I was like, well, what is it going to be? He said, I think I know, but I can't tell you. Oh, well, that sucks. But maybe that's Freddie being smart, because if he had told me, I'd be telling you right now.
That's true.
Right now. Rod is in Gallatin. Rod, I understand you want to talk about property taxes, so I have to admonish you to watch your language. That's
I watch my language. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Rod. Thank you for your call.
My main concern is when Freddie said, well, your rates are going down. That's the exact same thing Sumner County told me when I started fighting my property tax up here. Your rates are going down, but you doubled, almost tripled the property value of my home. So tell me how this actually works out in my benefit. They're playing a freaking game, and they're not telling you the whole freaking truth.
Well, yeah, they're singing you a song of their own choosing. Right, Rod?
That is absolutely correct, because there's going to be people out there, my property rates are going down. But they don't realize they just doubled the freaking assessment on their homes. I've got my home that I've got in downtown Gallatin. I bought it 5 years ago for $63,000. They're saying it's worth $200,000, and it's a little 800 square foot house.
Wait, 800 square foot house? And what is the
Yeah, it's 800. It's about 800 to 1,000 square foot. It's a little 3-bedroom, single bath, and it was built in the early '60s. So this thing is old as dirt. And I bought it for $63,000. Now they're saying it's worth $199,000. Tell me how that is possible.
Well, here's what I would do. But I've had this experience not in Nashville, Tennessee, or the metro area, but back in Alabama, where I called the property assessor, and there was a mechanism that you could request a reassessment of your property. And during that process, I called the property assessor, Rod, and I said, you're telling me that my property is worth, $290,000. How about you cut me a check? I'll take $280. I'll give you a deal. I'll take $10,000 off that. I'll take $280 right now. Just call them and tell them to cut you a check for $190,000, and you'll call it a day.
Been there, done that. Didn't work.
Well,
they
changed their tune. They changed their tune when you're telling them to buy it from you, right?
Well, yeah, they told me, said you're more than happy to come before the board, but I'm just telling you right now, I just run the comps in that area, and your taxes will go up by another $80,000 if you want to press the subject.
Oh well, that sounded like what? That's a threat, right? Sounded like a threat. Yikes. Well, I mean, I get it. I mean, they change their tune depending on, obviously when they're worried about collecting money from you, Rod. Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. I got to move on to a break. When they're worried about collecting money from you, your property's going to be worth the one. I mean, you can't sell it for that, and most people recognize that. And property rates have just gone astronomically high in the metro area anyway. In a moment, we will ask Cameron Smith to address 8957, who wants him to talk yet again about his suggestion that Donald Trump could not win elections.
Let's do it.
I mean, we haven't done this on the afternoon show. We've done it on the midday show, so why not? 52 after the hour on Super Talk. All right, friends, so it's very cold outside, and with that cold weather comes bugs into your home because they want the same things that you want, right? I talk about it all the time. They want the warmth that you enjoy, and they do so. They enjoy it themselves in your walls, in your crawl spaces, whether it's rodents, mice, rats, whether it's roaches, maybe it's some sort of other bugs or creepy crawlies. Spiders are pretty bad this time of year. I mean, the bottom line is this. You need protection from all of this, and you need to keep out those communist bugs that are trying to steal what's yours. You do so with U.S. Pest. I love J.K. and Erica Brister. They're great people. They're fine sponsors of this program, and I love what they do for pest protection in Middle Tennessee. They understand what threatens you. They understand what bugs you. Full-service pest control, 100% money-back guaranteed. Termite protection with 100% money-back guaranteed. Crawl space service, 100% money-back guaranteed. All available for you at U.S. Pest. Sign up today and get ready for the spring season that's around the corner with U.S. Pest. Go to uspest.com. That's uspest.com. Or call 590-1260. 615-590-1260 for the one and only U.S. Pest.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Gaza ceasefire. Governor Lee's critics say he's trying to strong-arm his school voucher bill to his desk. And food coloring getting banned for cancer risk. We'll tell you about these stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There he is. There's Ken Weaver. We did not do nincompoops in the news, and I'm sorry. So we're going to do it at 6:05 if that's okay with everybody, or whenever we get back from the news break. I forgot. This is only the second time that I've forgotten to do nincompoops in the news, and we've done it like third. Okay, it's only the third time that I forgot to do nincompoops in the news, and we've done like, this is the 9th nincompoops in the news, and I've only forgotten 3 times, so that's like a third of the time. Was that?
If you were playing baseball, you'd be.
I was about to say, if I was
an all-star, baby.
If I was a batter in the batter's box, I'm hitting .333. I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You better.
Unfortunately,
do you have a nincompoop
in the news?
I think you are a nincompoop.
That's if you talk to the super text line.
8957 is my new favorite super texter. He said this is why Cameron writes for a liberal rag. He said Trump can never win. He said it. I didn't. Right or wrong, you tell me, Murph, and I'm not scared of either of you.
How big old boy are you? Come on down.
He's also turning 60 today. Happy birthday, 8957. It's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. A Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal reached today between Israel and Hamas. Phases of the agreement call for the release of hostages along with Palestinian prisoners, more humanitarian aid into Gaza, along with reconstruction and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. President Biden says the framework is similar to the proposal he outlined last May.
President Biden said the road to this ceasefire and hostage release deal has not been easy.
I've worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced.
The president said there were many roadblocks and setbacks, but the administration did not give up on diplomacy and said this deal came together because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
The Biden administration and the Trump team working together in those final weeks of talks. The president says the next administration will need to ensure that the deal holds.
Here in Tennessee, there will be 3 issues which state lawmakers will deal with in the special session, which Governor Lee called school vouchers, Hurricane Helene disaster relief, and what Lee calls illegal immigration public safety. Democratic state lawmakers accuse Lee of trying to strong-arm Republicans who don't support his school vouchers bill by including that Hurricane Helene relief.
People in Northeast Tennessee have continued to suffer without vital funds and relief while their governor was trying to destroy their public schools and line up enough votes for a voucher scam, which he is now pairing with that relief as political leverage.
Special session kicks off January 27th. Federal regulators moving to ban red dye number 3 used in candy, cakes, cupcakes, frostings, and other food you may be eating. Here's Chuck Severson.
The regulation prohibits the Food and Drug Administration from approving a color additive if it's found to cause cancer in people or animals. While some studies showed no cancer link involving red dye number 3, at least 2 studies did show a connection in rats. So the FDA is responding to that, plus a petition from health groups and activists.
Yeah, there are other approved red dyes. Food manufacturers will have till 2027 to reformulate their products, while drug makers have until 2028. That's not all the FDA is moving to do. It's proposing a plan to reduce nicotine in nearly every tobacco product you smoke, cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, by 95%, from 13 milligrams to 0.07 milligrams. This does not include vapes or nicotine patches. And the U.S. government has recovered more than $31 million in Social Security payments that improperly went to dead people. It's just the tip of the iceberg, in the words of an assistant Treasury secretary. That money was reclaimed as part of a 5-month pilot program after Congress gave the Treasury Department access to the Social Security Administration's full death master file. It's the most complete federal database of people who have died. The Treasury projects it will recover more than $215 million that the effort produced insights into preventing fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Eleven crashes. Let's start on the South Loop. 40 eastbound after 65 south. Green Hills, the right 2 lanes blocked. 440 eastbound near the Woodlawn Drive overpass. We've got 440 eastbound near Nolensville Pike. 65 northbound at Wedgwood Avenue. And then 24 eastbound near Murfreesboro Pike. You got a stalled vehicle there blocking the left shoulder. Crash on the West Loop. That's going to be 40 eastbound near 65 west. 65 northbound before Vietnam Veterans Boulevard, and in Goodlettsville, a crash 65 northbound at Long Hollow Pike. In Murfreesboro, a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. You got to get over for that. 24 eastbound at Old Fort Parkway. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Man, during the break, by the way, hello, my name is Matt Murphy. This is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, just like the big voice guy told you. We've got another hour to go, or almost an hour, 53 minutes if you want to be precise. Chris Weber's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Ken Weaver right behind him, delivering on the headlines and all of the traffic issues. Did you say 11, Ken Weaver? Did I hear that correctly? 11 traffic accidents?
Yes, sir. Seems everybody forgot how to drive over the holidays.
Maybe so. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken Weaver. That's more than normal. That's more than like 8 or 4.
It's not often that there are nearly a dozen crashes being worked at a single moment in Nashville rush hour.
It's a lot. 11.
Wow. 11.
Which is more than 10.
Yeah, that's one more than 10.
Yeah, goodness gracious. So there's Ken Weaver. He's busy doing yeoman's work back there in News Closet B. By the way, you don't know how much Chris Weber's been working behind the scenes today, and I want to thank you, Chris, for everything that you've been doing. Thank you.
Man, that's really nice.
That is nice. Yeah,
That's really nice.
I mean, no,
I got a special place where I keep all those thank yous.
I just.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it now.
This
that response is everything.
This budding executive producer host relationship is going to go really well.
Yeah.
For me. It's going to. I like it. I love it to death.
Just don't take it, Chris.
Yeah,
just you got to dish it out.
I understand. I've been doing. Look, what I do is fairly easy on a day like this, where you got all these security people coming in, and Governor Bill Lee and Freddie O'Connell, and it's all frenetic, and I just sit here and ask goofy questions and get answers. You're doing the hard work. You're having to move stuff around and keep me on time, or try to keep me on time, and doing all that, and I do, and I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome.
You give me you're giving me the stink eye when you know I'm not doing nincompoops in the news when I'm supposed to be doing nincompoops in the news. And then but the comment I just noticed, I went over to the YouTube channel to see what the YouTubers are saying over there, and there's a tremendous conversation ongoing about what Governor Lee is and is not. Some people think that Governor Bill Lee is awesome.
I'm just looking at the video 4-way, and Ken looks like a ghost.
No, Ken looks great in there.
I love it.
Be careful. That's like 10 seconds behind. It'll screw you up. I just looking for the basic shot. But if you look over there, it starts screwing with you, because it's like you're talking on a PA. You're trying to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you hear yourself 2 seconds after you say the words.
It is bright in here. Oh, it's that. That's why.
I'm in heaven.
I just saw him. See, I told you. I just saw Ken go, ooh. I just saw him do it.
Right.
There we go. Maybe now maybe I don't look quite like a ghost.
Still a little bright.
Ghost of Oklahoma's past.
Yeah.
No need to be mean. No need to be cruel.
Why'd you have to bring that up?
I'm an
Brother
Alabama
Cameron?
fan, so you got room to smack me around, so okay.
It doesn't make it any better.
That was the lone bright spot of it.
Hey, did I tell you that Jalen Milroe is going to the NFL draft?
You did. You told
Just
me that.
saying.
Did I mention to you that Carson Beck's now a Miami Hurricane? That's good news, right?
I heard that Bama actually called him up before he made the decision to go to Miami.
Did you now?
Yeah, Carson Beck.
Y'all missed out on Carson.
Yep.
Well, dang it.
Well, you got to pay that man.
We already got rid of one guy that can throw interceptions. We could have had another.
You could have.
He wanted a McLaren this time.
Oh, I don't blame him. I mean,
as you do.
As you would if you go over to Tuscaloosa. They got money over there.
Yeah.
Well, I like how Auburn's quarterback was known for interceptions, and then they directly picked up Oklahoma's quarterback. He was known for fumbling and interceptions.
That's a more well-rounded quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's a dual threat.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we normally do this at 5:35, but I was very late because we had Freddie on and we had Governor Bill Lee on before him. It's time. Let's get to it. It's 11 minutes after the hour. It's Nincompoops in the News. So you know it's official because we got a theme song.
Yeah.
All right, we got a 4-way Nincompoops in the News this time around, and I'm telling you, the story you just related to me is the story that you need to do for Nincompoops in the News.
I got it.
So I'm going to, you're a guest. You should go last. Not really a guest, your family, but gentlemen, who wants to go first? Who wants to go second? Who wants to go third?
I went first yesterday, so.
I'll go first. I don't mind.
You go first.
I feel excited about my story because I feel like you might have a kinship to it, Chris Weber, because it comes from across the pond.
Very
where many
nice.
of your stories have come from.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, we're dealing with a ring of very seasoned thieves that also have a bout of diarrhea.
Oh, boy.
So we have on video in jolly old England, the UK, the moment where a group of thieves seized 13 portable toilets in a bizarre overnight raid. Bosses say they were left baffled by the theft of the toilets, along with the chemicals inside them and the piping included. The company is known as Andy Loos. ANDYLOOS. Andy Lou's.
Lou, that's what they call a toilet.
That's what they call a toilet over there, sure. They've been in the portable toilet hire business for over 30 years. They have supplied appliances to a host of events, including a variety of different soccer outings, the Glastonbury Festival, amongst others. They described the raid as, quote, very unusual, and said the culprits even brought their own toilet mover trolley.
Didn't know there was such a thing.
Nor did I. The firm was targeted overnight between Wednesday, Jan 8 and Thursday, January 9th. So last week, closed-circuit television shows a large truck pulling up outside of the gates. There appears to be people carrying torches trying to open them up. Once the gates were pried open, 2 figures can be seen walking toward the Louvres carrying holdalls, which I think are hand trucks. I've got to translate for the Brits. Holdalls, hand trucks. They wheeled a transport trolley over and took one of the Louvres and then one by one loaded them into their lorry.
That's a truck.
That's a truck. They worked together to get each onto a lifting device to put it on their trailer. Amy Philpott, who, I mean, does that not sound like the quintessential Brit? Amy Philpott.
Mm-hmm.
General manager of the firm in Bainbury, Oxfordshire, said, "It's bizarre." That's what she said.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Why would someone target a portable toilet hire company when surely there's more valuable things to be taken in the night?
Sounds just like Eric Idle.
I don't like spam. To have a yard deliberately broken into is very unusual.
Given how prepared they were, the vehicles they used, and bringing their own toilet mover trolley, which apparently is a specialty unit, moving the units with ease, we suspect it was someone very familiar with the toilet hire industry. Now, I just ask of you, now these are the nincompoops. They stole a bunch of porta potties.
Yeah.
So you have to feel like this is somebody with a competing porta potty business, right?
You would think so.
I want to know who fences porta potties. Like, hey,
we
come
really
over
need
here.
Yeah.
I got a pooper.
Hey. You got to go number 2.
I like that better. That's good.
You got to go number 2.
Right, but that's a super weird thing to steal.
It's an odd thing to steal. But they stole 13 of them. And the thieves have yet to be apprehended. A spokesperson for the Thames Valley Police say we're investigating a burglary with a number of portaloos having been stolen. Piping were stolen from a business property on Thorpe Way, Banbury. And thank you. There's my horrible English
I'm going to start
accent.
calling
That's
them portaloos.
Portaloos. That's pretty good.
See, the version of the story I saw said, police are investigating, but they have nothing to go on.
Well played.
I waited like 4 minutes for him to get through reading the story so I could name of that.
Mr. Ken Weaver, your turn, sir.
All right. Mine comes from the U.S. federal government suing Southwest Airlines and fining Frontier for chronically delayed flights. The nincompoops in this story, Southwest Airlines and Frontier. Airlines have a legal obligation to ensure that their flight schedules provide travelers with realistic departure and arrival times, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said in a statement. Today's action sends a message to all airlines that the department is prepared to go to court in order to enforce passenger protections. So the Transportation Department says its investigation found that Dallas-based Southwest operated 2 chronically delayed flights, one between Chicago Midway and then Oakland, California. Another one between Baltimore, Maryland, and then Cleveland, Ohio. Apparently, these flights were chronically late by at least an hour for 5 straight months. Resulted in 180 flight disruptions for passengers between April and August of 2022. So now they're suing Southwest. They're seeking what they call the maximum civil penalty. So I guess they're going to ask for some number. They're going to get to that, and hopefully the judge goes along with it. Now, we know what Frontier Airlines is being fined. They're being fined $650,000 in civil penalties, $325,000 to be paid to the U.S. Treasury, the remaining $325,000 to be suspended if the carrier does not operate any chronically delayed flights in the next 3 years.
So let me get this straight. that the federal government comes in and says, you're chronically late. We're going to fine you.
Yeah.
To which the airlines then pass the cost on to consumers.
Bingo.
So now it's late and more expensive.
Right. Thank you, Pete.
So maybe Pete is a nincompoop too.
Well, a lot of nincompoops going around. Why? I don't understand why they at some point didn't just shift.
Just change the time.
Just change the time.
Yeah. Just tell the
the 5 o'clock Baltimore to Philadelphia flight is now a 6 o'clock Baltimore to Philadelphia flight.
For 5 months, that's a running joke, right? So people who regularly take that flight are like, don't worry, we got time.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey man, we got to get on this flight. We got to get through security. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right. Yeah, they say it's 5 o'clock, but it's not really. Everybody's a nincompoop in that story. Yes, sir, Mr. Weber.
My turn?
Yeah.
All right, mine comes from Rhode Island. A Rhode Island mother received a terrifying phone call a couple weeks ago from a bus company who takes her 3-year-old autistic child to and from school every day. They stated they were at my door with my son and that nobody was answering, she says. So she runs downstairs and nobody was there. The caller then described the home that they were at, which this lady realized was not her house. She directed them to the correct location. But when the bus monitor got off the bus to deliver her child, she realized that this was not her child. She says, that's not mine, referring to the child. So the bus monitor goes back on the bus, got another backpack, but the same child, and then brought it back to her. To which she said again, that's not my child.
I like how she's referring to a human being as that.
Yeah, that's not mine.
That's not mine. All right, sorry.
So
put it back.
Finally, she says her son came off the bus, but he says he did not seem like himself. He had no jacket on and no backpack. She had to ask the monitor to then get the backpack. She then took him off the bus and brought him inside. Of course, she complained. In a statement from the school district, Superintendent Joseph Goho says that both the driver and monitor of the bus were substitutes and emphasized that no student was ever released off the bus or unsupervised. And a representative for the bus company also reiterated that statement. But there have been incidents in the past where the staff on the bus don't appear to be trained on how to handle children with autism or kids with other disabilities. So I don't know who the nincompoop is here. It could be the school system, could be the driver, could be the monitor. But, yeah, there you go.
I thought you were going to say that the monitor brought the child back with the backpack, and the mom says, get in the car. Like the backpack made the difference.
That's not mine.
Went back, got another backpack and the same kid. Just lets you try again, I guess.
I'm going to try that with my boys. Be like, that's not mine.
Trade them in for another model.
That's not mine.
Yeah, I get it.
Give me one that listens.
All right, Cameron Smith, our guest and nincompoop.
Yeah, this one is actually in line with kids and family, but the Grand Ole Opry stole my 10-year-old's Christmas present. He was going to go see Shaboozey in concert. And it was marketed as a Shaboozey concert, all this stuff. And Shaboozey, because of the LA fires, was forced to evacuate and can't make his Opry debut.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Don't bother.
Okay, never mind. You know what a question I was going to ask.
Who's Shaboozey?
Who is Shaboozey?
Yeah.
The bar song you've heard. I mean, I'm sure I played it for you, so I know you've heard it.
No, I'm not.
He
I don't think I have.
You definitely have.
I think
the listeners, at least some of them, know who Shaboozey
Any vague knowledge I had about popular music ended in 1998. So
yeah, then you would not know. But in this,
Shaboozey is an artist that the kids like.
Very popular.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
all right, I'm good.
Has a couple of great songs, like great country singer. And then we get this email that says, well, he's canceled. We wish him the best, but we're still having the event because there's some undercard performers also having their Opry debut. And so we paid hundreds of dollars of these tickets. My son was like, hey, I want to go see him. I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I'm listening to the songs. I need my cowboy boots and cowboy hat. And then we get an email saying, we are looking forward to seeing you at this event. Wait a minute. Like, I thought it was canceled. No, it's not canceled. We're still having the event with people you've never heard of and didn't want to see, but it's still happening. So you get to pay for it. And now we're going to reschedule that someday later. You don't get a refund. So
that's terrible.
Grand Ole Opry stole my 10-year-old's Christmas present.
Wow. That's a local nincompoop.
Yeah, man.
I think they're going to hear enough about that.
I hope so.
Is this it?
Bingo.
Okay, I like this because I looked this up on the YouTubes, and when you look it up on Google, when it hits the shabuzi, it's called tipsy, I guess.
Yeah.
And the entire screen tips over. It tips back and forth.
Clever.
That's pretty clever. Okay, I think I vaguely.
I can hear my 10-year-old singing to this in like the house. And so he was really disappointed. And I just, the idea that you can say, oh, well, we took away the headliner, but it's still happening. So
the entire reason that you decided to spend $300 is not going to be there, but you're still going to be charged $300.
Yeah, hope you have fun.
Everybody else is going to. It feels the exact same way that you do. I can't see this standing.
You know,
you think they're going to return?
My wife was fired up, and she said she actually was the one that said you need to talk to Matt about that because that's bad.
Well, that is bad. Grand Ole Opry, what are you doing over there? Let's return. I mean, I understand you're not in the business of returning money, but come on now.
Yeah,
your headliner's not going to be there. What are you doing? All right, there it is. That's Nincompoops in the News. A four-way edition, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You get to vote, 615-737-9986. Who is the biggest nincompoop? Who's the winner of the day? It's 24 after the hour. We're all winners because we're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. It is difficult to find someone that you can trust to tell you the truth about what's going on with your heater. That's why I have found this person for you, and you can trust Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. If you're trying to make that decision as to whether to repair or replace, it's a hard decision to make, and you need a trusted advisor in this regard. Jeff's going to come in, or one of his qualified technicians will come in. They'll analyze your situation. They'll see the age of your unit. They'll see what they can do to get it back up and running, at least to complete the season or perhaps a couple of seasons to come. You're going to save money like that, right? Because this is a major expense to get that heater replaced. Now, when it comes time, there's always a time. There's a life cycle on these things. They are an Elite Pro partner with Rheem, meaning they can help you pick out the right heating unit for you and for your family. Plus, to maintenance your unit never cost over $125, no matter how many units you have on your residence. Residential maintenance calls never over $125 and often much less than that. Efficient Heating and Cooling. Give them a call today or look them up online at efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net. 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient.
All right, Gaza ceasefire, Tennessee legislative session, and the day's closing money news at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Ken Weaver. 28 after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was just telling Cameron Smith, we were talking about this legislation that was passed yesterday in the House of Representatives. AOC's all crazy about it. You're going to be checking little girls' dresses. The legislation simply says that biological males in any school setting, in any setting whatsoever in which federal money is involved, which is their kind of overview, their umbrella, that you cannot allow biological males, individuals born male, to compete against female athletes in those settings. And we see time and time again examples of biological males who identify as female dominating biological females in their given sports. Not all of them, but many of them. I gave an example to Cameron that there's apparently a biological male basketball player that is absolutely dominating high school in California, and he played a game with his fellow female teammates, and his team won 59-33, and he scored 29 points. So he almost single-handedly outscored the entire team on the other side, which is just anyway.
Why are you being so hateful?
I know, I am. It's mean-spirited, isn't it? And you were giving me the example of weightlifting.
Yeah.
And I want you to do that. But so what I was telling you, the record in the women's 100 meters was set in 1988 by FloJo, Florence Griffith Joyner.
Yeah.
And it's one of the more long-standing track and field records in either men's or women's track and field. It is 10.49 seconds in the 100 meters. Last year, 72 high school boys beat that record.
Yes.
In high school, track and field.
Yeah.
79. So if you tell me there are not fundamental biological differences between the male of the species and the female of the species, I would say that you are, how do I say this? Wrong. You have a better example, actually.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good at the gym. I've been working out for the last couple of years, and I said, well, I want to see how many men can have a max bench press of 320 pounds. And I said, where do I stack as far as other strong people, right? And the ratio was something like 1 in 100. So out of every 100 adult males, there's one that can bench press that much. If I took the same weight and applied it to women, it was 1 in a million. Just think about that. Like, it changed that much because of the biological differences. And we've got to stop whispering about this stuff in hushed tones. And I understand when it comes to women's sports, like we've really raised the flag to say, hey, this is ridiculous. But we shouldn't stop there. We should say, hey, there are some real biological differences that matter in this space particularly. We're going to talk about this. But you're talking about speech as far as your gender identity, and not everybody else has to recognize that.
Let's talk about that in relation to Pete Hegseth yesterday as he was before the United States Senate. They are considering him for Secretary of Defense. It's 32 after the hour. Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast, traffic updates in 5 minutes. Yeah, the deal reached by Hamas and Israel will pause fighting in Gaza starting on Sunday. It is to pave the way for additional negotiations that would permanently end the fighting there. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters today.
Hamas finally realized that the broader regional war that they had been hoping to achieve since October 7th, the broader regional war that was part of their original strategic effort, that they weren't going to get that.
Governor Lee calling a special session to deal with school vouchers, Hurricane Helene disaster relief, and illegal immigration public safety in Tennessee. Channel 4 Stacey Cameron.
So here's how that special session will work. By law, it has to last at least 3 days, 72 hours. During that session, lawmakers in both the House and Senate will put on hold all their other legislative work and work only on the bills that the governor lays out. Now, they will continue to do that until they pass one or more ignore the bills or until they call them dead.
All three bills to be dealt with separately. Money News, Michelle Franzen.
Stocks surged on Wall Street Wednesday, boosted by encouraging inflation news. Investors hoping that the uptick in prices could open the door for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates later this year. The Dow was up 703 points. The S&P 500 rose 107 points, and the Nasdaq gained 467 points. Strong profit reports from banks including Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and J.P. Morgan Chase helped jolt major stock indexes to their best day in 2 months. The Food and Drug Administration has banned red dye 3 from use in food. The additive was barred from cosmetics decades ago because of potential cancer risks. The FDA has expanded restrictions in response to consumer groups. The U.S. Transportation Department announced a lawsuit against Southwest Airlines for chronic flight delays. The suit alleges Southwest operated an unrealistic scheduling practice.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Got a crash 40 eastbound at Fessler's Lane, 40 eastbound after 65, I-440 eastbound after Hillsborough Pike, 21st Avenue, and then 24 eastbound near Murfreesboro Pike. On the West Loop, an accident, 40 eastbound near 65, and in Belmont, 65 northbound at Wedgwood Avenue. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Holy moly, Arctic air. You hear the man? That's some cold air there if it's Arctic air. Let me tell you something that's a wonderful organization. It's a group of people that I strongly believe in. I've had an opportunity to visit them on campus, and I get the opportunity to talk about them to you, and it's Men of Valor. Men of Valor, what a wonderfully run organization and what a great purpose behind the organization. They understand that we spend a lot of money to put people in jail for good reason, because with crime must come punishment, and they believe that at Men of Valor. But they also understand this fact that over 90% of the men that go into prison will get out at some point. Now, we have to ask ourselves, what type of people do we want coming out of the prison walls? Do we want, career criminals? Do we want people that go in for seemingly minor offenses and they come out more criminal than they went in? Or do we want men of God? Do we want people that have been discipled to? Do we want people that would make a good job partner for you or your business? We do want those types of people, and Men of Valor helps facilitate that in so many different ways. But they need you in order to continue that effort because they save us money by stopping recidivism, and they do protect society by creating good members of our society in the state of Tennessee. Will you join Men of Valor in helping set the captives free? I hope you will. Go to movministry.com. That's movministry.com. They need you as a volunteer, as a donator, as a job partner, a Bible study teacher, whatever you're able to do. They're willing to take it. movministry.com. Apparently, although she's not saying so, Marsha Blackburn is running for governor. That's what we hear amongst those that know. We'll discuss momentarily with our man Cameron Smith, who, according to someone on the Super Chat, this is on the YouTube Super Chat, not on the Super Text. Don't confuse the Super Chat with
Different
the Super Text.
super.
Yeah, the Super Text, it can be one-on-one, kind of rude and weird.
Yes.
The Super Chat is a group weirdness, and people seem empowered to suggest that we are not doing it right.
Yeah.
On the Super Chat, and I'm being told that you ruined the show.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I do my best.
And then I'm also being told that by Riff Addict that
okay.
His name is Riff Addict.
Okay.
RIFF Addict. And on the Super Chat, Riff says that that Governor Bill Lee, who was on our show, 4:30-ish, is the worst governor in Tennessee history. Worst governor in Tennessee history.
Does Riff say why?
Well, several, including yours truly, have pulled up the chat, and I've asked, and several others have asked, exactly why you would say that, and Riff will not answer. He just continues to repeat that he's the worst governor. Riff is trolling. I'm a professional troller, and so I know trolling when I see it. I get paid good money to troll people.
It's true.
That's what makes me a professional. But Riff, I would encourage you to look up former Tennessee Governor Ray Blanton, Leonard Ray Blanton, who was the 44th governor of the state of Tennessee from 1975 to 1979. He also served 3 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives from 67 to 73, the year I was born. He apparently was known for instituting a number of government reforms, was instrumental in bringing foreign investment to the state of Tennessee. However, at the end of his term, he sullied all of that by deciding that he was going to sell pardons. He also sold liquor licenses to the highest bidder, but that's neither here nor there. He decided that he would sell pardons to the highest bidder, which I would think was illegal. Haven't really looked into it, but I would encourage you to look up Ray Blanton and tell me if he weren't maybe a notch or two down from Bill Lee, with all due respect to you, Riff Addict.
I'm looking up. We got plenty of bad governors in Tennessee. I just look up Malcolm Patterson. I mean, this guy was a peach. I mean, really had some problems with temperance and releasing felons for partisan purposes.
Oh, there you go.
As you do.
You know, as one would do
right
back in the day. What do you think about the rumor mill grinding? I mean, it's a pretty obvious that there's some smoke and fire with this rumor that Marsha Blackburn is thinking about leaving the United States Senate in 2026 and running for governor. What do you think?
Well, I have not ruled out a run for governor, as have no one else, apparently. So, yeah, this is just a lot of talk. We'll see. If somebody can clear the field easily, then that's a good strategy, right? So Blackburn's saying, I'm eyeballing it. I can't confirm or deny, but if you get a Glenn Jacobs or somebody like him that's a strong candidate who says, well, if Marsha's in, I guess I'm out, then, yeah, she's absolutely going to run for governor.
By the way, Glenn Jacobs will not run against Marsha.
Right. And so then
I had him on the show yesterday.
Then he's saying, okay, cool. She clears the field. So then she's basically trial ballooning. All right, who's going to throw down?
Right.
And if the answer is, well, nobody really wants to run against you, then she's going to run a campaign where she's going to sail through a primary and crush the Democratic opponent.
It is my understanding, and I've had conversations with him about this, and I'm not going into any specifics, but it's my understanding that Congressman John Rose feels very led to offering his service to the state of Tennessee as governor.
Sure.
And John Rose has the means, the financial means personally,
right,
to largely fund a run for governor. But if someone like Marsha gets in the race, and people were like, well, why wouldn't people want to run against her? Because Marsha would almost, I mean, tell me who's going to get Trump's endorsement over Marsha.
it would be hard to imagine anybody. I mean, best case scenario, Trump stays out of it for a challenger to her. I like Congressman Rose. I think he's a fantastic guy. Great for policy. I worked with him on the Republican Policy Committee. Great guy. I think in terms of name ID, obviously an incumbent senator and somebody like Senator Blackburn, who's very outspoken, who frankly knows her state real well.
I mean, you can not like it when I say this to you, but it doesn't mean that it isn't true. That if Marsha Blackburn can raise $20 million like that.
Yeah.
And I understand she can't spend her Senate money in a governor's race, but there's a way to turn federal money into state money.
Yeah, I mean,
in these political worlds.
She's got an ability to, because she has been such a defender, particularly of the music industry. I mean, vigilant. She can go to a lot of folks real fast and say, support me.
I related this story the other day, though, Cameron, and you are intimately familiar with it. When Robert Bentley was the governor of the state of Alabama and Jeff Sessions was named as Donald Trump's first attorney general, that opened up a Senate seat in Alabama. Robert Bentley, and in the inner circles, in the inner workings of his scandal that eventually became public knowledge, it was our understanding that there was some push to get then Attorney General Luther Strange to look into Robert Bentley. Well, lo and behold,
guess what?
Guess what happened? Robert Bentley, when Jeff Sessions went to Washington, appointed Luther Strange to fill the whatever it was, a year or so of the term before they could have a special election. Well, people got wind of that in the state of Alabama, and they didn't like it at all. They didn't like it so much that they picked a flawed, failed candidate, a thrice-failed gubernatorial candidate in Roy Moore over Luther in a primary runoff election, and eventually Roy Moore got trounced by a Democrat, Doug Jones, and that led to 2 years of Doug Jones, which eventually led to Tommy Tuberville, all's well that ends well. And, oh, by the way, Robert Bentley was booted out of office. I say all that to say this. I don't think people have a problem with Marsha necessarily as governor. But here's the reality, because several of you are asking the question. Who fills the Senate seat? And this will be the question that we have to ask Marsha if she decides to run. Are you going to resign from your Senate seat if you win the governor's office prior to taking the oath of office? Because if she resigns, it's my understanding through the AG's office in Tennessee, if Marsha vacates the Senate seat prior to taking the oath of office as governor, Bill Lee makes the appointment. And that person would serve until the next November election.
If she vacates after, she does.
And if she vacates after she takes the oath, she does. And I wonder, I mean, is that not, I mean, that's a lot of political currency.
Yeah. And
to wave around.
And let's be honest, everybody's talking about this stuff behind the scenes. And let's be clear. One of the best political operatives in the state of Tennessee is Ward Baker. And Ward Baker is pulling a lot of strings here to kind of fill this out, see where candidates stack up. He's very good at his job. And guess what? You're going to see, well, does the field clear? Okay, my guess is that somewhere around there he is, and then there's going to be conversations around other candidates to say, okay, well, then where do the other pieces fall? And that's not illegal. That's not strange. It can lead to unintended consequences like you're talking about in Alabama. But, you know, this is going to shake out, I would think, pretty soon, because if Jacobs won't run against Blackburn, we'll see where Rose is head-to-head. I think that's a tough one for Rose to win.
I do, too.
Who else jumps in the field that has the name ID, fundraising capacity, and, frankly, just political tenure to beat her?
I mean, John Rose has the ability to self-fund if he feels called to do it, regardless of who he's running against. Then you have other people and names that I've heard thrown out, like Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett is a nice wild card, but Tim Burchett is not an independently wealthy man. So you're not only giving up your congressional seat, and Marsha gives up nothing, right? She's serving as a senator. If she loses the governor's office, she continues to serve as a senator. Right. So you're giving up a congressional seat to go up against a better funded person with a better name ID, and you have to raise at minimum $25 million.
Yeah,
to run a statewide election for governor.
And you would have to tell me because typically we would say, okay, well, who's the businessman or woman in the space that has enough name ID that they could jump in and say, hey, I'm a political outsider. I think that could put up a formidable challenge to a Blackburn, but I don't know who that is.
I hear that. Who's the president of CoreCivic? Oh, I forget his name. But
therein lies the rub.
Well, but that's the thing. Well, no, and you're right. But he has the money. Oh gosh, I got to get his name. But he has the money to run the race. I mean, he is a well-heeled candidate. But you got CoreCivic,
right?
Damon Henninger.
Damon Henninger, who is amongst political circles. He's thinking about running for governor.
But give Blackburn some credit. She's never stopped running for office. Never. She and I don't mean that as a bad thing. She's saying, well, where are the people of Tennessee? What do I got to do? She spends a lot of her time talking about the issues that Tennesseans want to talk about versus saying, I'm solely going to focus on policy and legislation. And that served her well, actually.
Aren't you so very excited to listen to Joe Biden's farewell address to the nation tonight?
He's still there.
Apparently he is. That's what we're told, whether he knows it or not. And apparently moments from now, he will be delivering a farewell address to the nation. I happen to have an advanced copy of the farewell address to the nation. Would you like to hear a portion of it?
I would.
Yes, I did pretty good.
That's an excellent clip.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. What? No.
He's got to say, come on, man, at least once.
Come on, man. Jack! Well, we'll all listen with bated breath as Joe Biden says goodbye to the United States of America. I love the fact that he said that he could have beaten Trump after he was dispatched of. But then he added in that he thought that Kamala could beat Trump too. Did you hear that clip?
Yeah. What?
That's what he said.
I know. And look.
That's what the man said.
But before he opened his mouth, he was a formidable candidate until he started speaking and everyone realized you have fallen apart completely.
Real quick, because we do have to go, your thoughts on the confirmation process so far is, do you see any danger for Donald Trump's nominees so far?
No, Gabbard, RFK Jr., I think are probably the ones that are most controversial. I actually
you think Hegseth is in? He's good?
Yeah. I mean, after seeing that hearing.
He did a really good job.
He did a good job, and he could answer some of those very nuts and bolts military questions in a way that other nominees probably couldn't, so it was really impressive. I think RFK is weird and has some challenges. Gabbard is the one that has been probably the least vetted from the job that she's applying for, as it were. The only wild card I see is if a Democratic senator really pins RFK Jr. on his views on abortion, then it puts Republican senators in a tough position. If he's like, I'm very pro-choice, he can pivot, he can figure out how not to bite. But if he bites, then Republicans feeling like, hey, we're not going to back somebody who's pro-choice.
I know we got to go, but doesn't he have an auto answer for that though?
Which is
you just pivot to that question's been answered by the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah,
it is a state issue.
He can do it. I just think it will be a bludgeon point.
It'll be a weird thing for Republicans. There's Cameron Smith. All right, we'll wrap things up in just a moment. 53 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN winding down. A lively day on the afternoon broadcast. We had Governor Bill Lee on. If you missed any of that, podcast will be up and running. We also had Mayor Freddie O'Connell as well. Podcast up and running. I don't expect we'll be podcasting Cameron Smith.
That's hurtful. I won't raise your property taxes either.
Well, thank you. Neither will Freddie. I live in Wilson County. We enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. Coming up tomorrow, our old friend, Representative Scott Sapicki, is going to be swinging by. He'll talk to us a little bit more about the legislative process involved in the special session and what we can anticipate out of the Education Freedom Act, which I finally figured out what it's called. Thank you for being here today. Mark Levin is up next. For those of you not, just laser focused on Joe Biden's farewell address to the nation. I mean,
Biden's not even focused.
No, Joe Biden had to be woken up from his nap to be told that he was president of the United States and he has to say goodbye. Speaking of goodbye, say goodbye, Cameron.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Chris.
Yeah.
Until next time, parting is such sweet sorrow. So long, everybody.